In a shocking new report, the Daily Wire has an exclusive. A FEMA official ordered relief workers to skip houses that were advocating for Donald Trump. This is taxpayer dollars in Hurricane Milton. Relief for people in a largely Republican area, largely Trump-supporting area, were not getting the aid they need because officials said, do not help Trump supporters. I mean, that is just massive. And it's kind of crazy. We didn't hear about this sooner, but we're hearing about it now. And the response from a lot of people is Donald Trump, whatever his mandate was, he needs to take extremely seriously. And we're going to need real accountability because we got to get to the bottom of things like this. We'll talk about that. Plus, special counsel Jack Smith is dropping the charges and being ordered to preserve his records. So let's talk about what this means, what accountability is. We'll get into all that stuff. Before we get started, my friends, head over to preservegold.com/Timpool. The future's looking bright, I must admit. But it is always a great idea to protect your retirement accounts and 401k. So our friends over at Preserve Gold have an exclusive offer for my viewers right now, where you can get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase, as well as a free guide. So text Tim to 50505 to learn more. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews, millions of dollars in trusted transactions with happy clients. My friends, head over and check out Preserve Gold. Always a good idea to protect your future. And of course, castbrew.com. Now, as Castbrew is our company here and we're sponsoring ourselves, I can say whatever I want about it. It's the best coffee you will ever have, and that is a guarantee. Because I'm allowed to say that legally, I guess. It's an opinion statement or something, but we're sold out of Ian's Graphene Dream. Yo, Ian figured out one of our top-selling coffees. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And I'm sorry, it's sold out. However, you can still check out Stand Your Grounds, which is largely popular. And Appalachian Nights is very popular. People seem to like it. For those that wanted to step on Sneck and Find Out skateboards, they are now in stock at boonieshq.com. But we also have stickers. Step on Sneck and Find Out stickers are selling like hotcakes. Apparently, people buy a lot of pancakes, and you can buy our stickers too. Support the show, also becoming a member at timcast.com. We have a Discord server. As a member of the Discord server, you get to hang out with tens of thousands of people. So for everybody who's saying, hey, how do I get involved? How do I make friends, meet people, and be a part of this movement? One way is support this show by being a member, join the Discord community, and there are members shows, pre-shows, after shows, and I think it's tremendously worth it. We always have the members saying, hey, Tim, shout this out so we can make friends. They all want to be friends with you, and it supports the show. But also don't forget to smash that like button. Share the show right now with everyone you know. Become a member, as I mentioned. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Matt Walsh.
Great to be here. It's strange to be here doing your show, and I could just walk next door from my office. Usually I have to hike on horseback through the mountains for 14 hours to get to your studio. So this is kind of nice. Go ahead.
I was say there's something about making people work for it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see it. You got to earn it. I missed the Pappies, didn't I?
You missed the Pappies.
Yeah,
I missed
man.
the Pappies.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You guys drank that whole bottle.
I polished it off.
I think Elaad had like a quarter of the bottle.
We were celebrating.
How dare you?
Good reason
You
to.
should have been here.
Well, I was good. You told me on Tuesday morning about the Pappies, and I wanted to come over from the backstage show. They wouldn't let me leave. I was chained to the freaking chair. They wouldn't let me leave.
Wow.
Oh man, Daily Wire, old slave drivers over there.
We have the Daily Wire expose going on here now.
The stories I could tell.
Yes.
If only we weren't here.
If only. Well, it's going to be fun, man. Thanks for hanging out. Seamus is hanging out.
I'm Seamus Coughlin of Freedom Tunes. We just released a video today that people are loving. It's called We Are So Back. I think you guys are going to enjoy that. It's a lot of fun. Actually, I was scrambling to get it finished because Tim and I came up with a pretty funny ending, maybe an hour, 2 hours before it was supposed to go up, and I had to slap it together really quickly, but I think it turned out really, really well.
It's worth it because whenever these things happen, Seamus and I are just giggling back and forth and laughing at these ideas. And it's so worth it. The secret ending is so worth it.
It's so, you got to stay through. It's I like to consider it a cinematic universe. We have our Marvel Avengers ending after the credits. Where you just
I
gotta
really
watch
do
through.
think you have to make a 3-minute short film combining all of the cartoons.
All of the ending. Well, we did last year for Christmas. We did an 11-minute long cartoon where journalists reviewing the J6 tapes find that Santa was riding in the Capitol, and that was our Christmas special. It's really good. I would recommend everybody check that one out around the holidays.
Elaad's hanging out.
Hey, everybody. What's up? My name is Elaad Eliyahu. I'm a journalist here at Timcast. Excited to get into the news today. Phil, what's up?
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band all that remains, and I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. So let's go.
Here's the story from the Daily Wire exclusive. FEMA official ordered relief workers to skip houses with Trump signs. Whistleblower. It's almost unbelievable to think that somebody in the federal government would think that's okay. Now, this is crazy. A federal disaster relief official ordered workers to bypass the homes of Trump supporters as they surveyed damage caused by Hurricane Milton in Florida, according to internal correspondence obtained by the Daily Wire and confirmed by multiple federal employees. A FEMA supervisor told workers in a message to avoid homes advertising Trump as they canvassed Lake Placid, Florida, to identify residents who could qualify for federal aid. Internal messages viewed by the Daily Wire reveal the supervisor, Marnie Washington, relayed this message both verbally and in a group chat used by the relief team. Multiple government employees told the Daily Wire. The government employees told the Daily Wire that at least 20 homes with Trump signs or flags were skipped from the end of October and into November due to the guidance, meaning they were not given the opportunity to qualify for FEMA assistance. Images shared with the Daily Wire show that houses were skipped over by the workers who wrote in the government system message such as Trump sign, no entry per leadership. Take a look at this. It says, implement best practices, avoid homes advertising Trump. And apparently this is going down only a few days before the election.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to come up with some kind of rationalization, like people with Trump signs outside their homes are more likely to be unfriendly and own firearms, and we're afraid of them. But regardless, whenever there's any kind of investigation, or if these people are punished as they should be, we're going to be told it's a political prosecution, that we live in some kind of banana republic.
Completely
because every
don't
time
care.
they're held, bro, do you think I care? Do you think I'm saying it because I'm like, we can't do this? I don't want the liberals to be upset about our justice system. They're upset anytime anyone's punished.
Already, our good friends, the Krasensteins, are taking that statement from Trump's lawyer where he says, if Letitia James keeps violating Trump's rights with lawfare, they will put her in jail. And then he tweets, oh my God, oh heavens, this is fascism. They warned us about it. It's happening. And all the liberals are like, we knew it. And it's just laughable because anybody, you know, they're liars. They know they're liars. We know they're liars.
That's right.
The charges against Donald Trump have no underlying crime and literally make no sense. And they should be investigated by the DOJ. But now liberals are acting like that's Trump being a fascist.
Yeah, but in this case, first of all, this violates like a dozen laws to withhold federal aid from people based on their politics. That's so illegal. It's illegal on so many different levels that obviously, and I know that FEMA has said, I think in their statement they said that they've identified the person, and they didn't even quite say they fired them. They said that they're no longer in that position or something. But that's not enough. Obviously, we need a prosecution. And the thing about this, when you see jail, obviously, and when you see the story, it's like they're so flagrant. Like if I had seen this headline and it wasn't from the Daily Wire, I don't know if I would believe it at first. And not because I doubt that the federal government would do this. It's only because it's so on the nose and it's so blatant. And then of course it's from the Daily Wire. So I'm like, well, of course I know that Daily Wire is trustworthy, and it's been confirmed by FEMA. But it is shocking. It's again, not that they did it, but that they put it in writing. Yeah. That they would just write that down and say, yep, skip the Trump houses, because they think they could just do whatever they want, and there will be no accountability at all. So just think about that. And this is you have to keep in mind, these are federal workers under Biden's administration, assuming also all of these workers were assuming that Kamala would win. And so they thought there's just no way this will ever come out. And so we can do whatever the hell we want, and we can tell people we're doing it and put it in writing. It's so flagrant and blatant.
Real quick, once they would skip it, they would write down in their surveys not able to access property.
Wow,
that's crazy.
Just deny it. It obviously none of us here are surprised. Obviously, this is something that is honest. It's standard. It's something that is expected ever since Lois Lerner and the IRS scandal. And which is over 10 years ago now. I don't know actually when it was happening, but Barack Obama was president. I think it was like around 2012, 13 or something like that when it was going on. But this is just the norm.
That's right.
The idea that there's not political persecution, there's not bias from Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was 95% for Kamala Harris. 95%. That is not representative of the United States. That is representative of a uniparty. And when you say uniparty, people look at you as if you're some kind of extremist or some kind of crazy person. It is purely ideological in DC, and the entire town needs to be gutted. Everybody needs to lose their job. I'm completely fine with shutting the whole government down and restructuring it all at about, and maybe you get 25% of what's there actually.
Vivek wanted to fire, I think, half the federal government.
Wouldn't it be wonderful?
Which is a great start. This also, by the way, this story really, it really sheds light on, we know what happened in Florida. Well, we also know what happened in North Carolina, where to us, to us peons and peasants, it seemed as though the federal government just abandoned these people, that many of them in the redder parts of, Asheville's very liberal, but the surrounding counties, very red part of North Carolina. And it seemed like from the outside that they were just being abandoned to drown. And you had to wonder if that was politically motivated. And of course, the media said, well, how dare you even suggest such a thing? And now we see this. And now I have to wonder, is there some directive from some FEMA official somewhere saying, yeah, leave North Carolina alone. They'll be fine. They're Trump supporters.
I mean, It wouldn't shock me. This is how the left has operated historically. You look at the Holodomor, and the entire argument was there just happened to be this famine in Ukraine. And even though they were exporting grain while everyone there was starving to death, this was not politically targeted. We weren't trying to kill our political enemies. What the left basically always does is they deprive basic necessities that they've been in charge of, or placed in charge of giving to people from them. And it's always a coincidence. There's always some reason that it just happens to be the case that their political enemies are being punished.
That's it.
Matt, you made a point earlier where you said if you didn't read this from the Daily Wire, you wouldn't have believed it at first. And this is a massive messaging problem for the right, because as you pointed out, Phil, people are afraid of being called crazy. And the left has done such a good job poisoning the well against bluntly describing the things that they're doing. And when you go to people and you just describe things that left-wing politicians and pundits have said, as well as the actual party platform of the Democratic Party, people will regard you like a crazy person. I mean, Kamala Harris literally said she wanted to fund sex change operations for illegal aliens. And I understand why people hear that and they don't want to believe it, because that sounds like something that The Simpsons would put in a Fox News headline in an episode they made 10 years ago.
This is, to your point, that's exactly right. The left will hear this story and they will say, oh, this is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
That was one person, and they'll minimize it as much as they can. Even though this is one step away from literally not helping people in the middle of an emergency, right? It's like they're not going to houses to offer aid. It's one step away from saying, don't go to that house while it's actually raining and while the floodwaters are going up. It's one step away from that. And that is one step away from things like the Holodomor. It's the same impulse.
And keep in mind, just to go back to the point about how flagrant this is, which again is the only thing that makes it, that gives you pause at first. You're like, could that really be, they're that blatant about it? So the fact that they're that blatant tells you something about the culture in FEMA, which is not a surprise. But if you have one official who's willing, again, to put this in writing, not just that they set it off the record in some meeting, but they put it in writing, then that tells you something about the culture there. It tells you that this official felt, I mean, obviously, if FEMA is filled with people like us, by that I mean just like normal common sense people, even if you are a far left FEMA official, you wouldn't put that in writing because you'd be worried about this exact thing happening. So they obviously are in an environment where they know they're around like-minded people. Yeah. I think we can assume that there's a lot of this kind of thing going on. And so to them, it was no big deal to put it in writing.
Well, and at some point, it's clear.
General Flynn said this morning on the Culture War podcast that we all dodged a bullet with this election. And then you see a story like this, and I want to stress, in a situation like a hurricane where people are in need of disaster relief, this aid could be life and death. In this area in Florida, I expect there's probably a lot of elderly who are in desperate need. This is, as Phil was saying, 1 degree away, but this is them saying they're okay with you dying in a disaster. They will not provide you the relief that you deserve as a citizen of this country, as a taxpayer, because they don't like your worldview.
Yeah, exactly. And there's never going to be any accountability for this, and there certainly won't be any accountability for eroding trust in American institutions. The fact that this is true should and will do more damage to American trust in federal agencies than a million January 6th could have. You get my point. A figure will come along and point out the lies and hypocrisy of the media and of the ruling class, and it's always made out to seem as if this person just pulled it out of nowhere and they hypnotized everybody. Everyone loved the media, and then Donald Trump came along and he convinced people not to like them anymore. People loved the government, but then people like Ron Paul came along and started convincing them not to. I mean, the reality is the federal government hates us as people. They hate our way of life. They detest normal people, and they don't care when you die. And they're in charge of ensuring you live. And by the way, the federal government, it spends between 15 and 19 billion dollars. I believe it's closer to 19 billion dollars every single day. They're capable of providing basic disaster relief. When they weren't doing that, I think it should have been apparent enough that it was intentional.
I think this is very obviously extremely disgusting. What stands out to me is this is FEMA. The organization is FEMA, and they're supposed to, you join FEMA because you want to help people and you want to help others. And to think that you'll just pass over people during a hurricane or what have you during a natural disaster like this is so disgusting. It's so outrageous that even the workers, in a quote here from the Daily Wire article, by the way, the guy who broke this story, Leif Lamahu, did a great job here. But the workers said, I thought we could go help and make a difference. When we got there, we were told to discriminate against people. It's almost unbelievable to think that somebody in the federal government would think that's okay. I'm glad there's at least somebody in FEMA who saw what was going on and thinking, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw if you guys covered the video a few weeks ago of I don't think it was FEMA, but they were federal disaster workers who were working on moving some logs from one part of the yard to the other part of the yard.
What was this one? I didn't see it.
It's like a dozen people, one guy handing a log to another guy over the course of 15 feet.
A human chain, 20 people moving a 10-pound log 20 feet.
Yeah.
But this is what happens. You've got these federal agencies that are full of people, most of whom have really nothing to do. There's too many of them. They're just always justifying their jobs. And they're also blatantly politically partisan. So it's no surprise when this happens.
Oh, there's hope. Thank God that Trump got elected. And if we're lucky, then, Elon Musk will actually be put in a position to do real cuts on the government. I mean, everyone knows he walked into Twitter and cut the personnel by 80% or something like that. And there were a couple bumps and hiccups while they were getting used to having the new structure. But now it works the same. It's perfectly fine. So hopefully, if we're lucky, he will get into a position to be able to actually do something, and there won't be too much obstructionism from Congress or whatever. Because I know that there are a lot of positions that take an act of Congress to actually get rid of. But there's a lot you can do with the purse strings and by cutting funding and by telling from the executive saying you don't do this. Your priority isn't this. That's what Obama did for a lot of things. He would say to like that. I think that's what. I think it was the Dreamer. No, I'm not sure if it was Dreamers, but there was some policy that Barack Obama said, don't worry about enforcing this, do these other things. These are the priorities. This act of Congress, we're not going to worry about. And if Obama can do it, then, President Trump can do it as well. So,
well, every president's, this is one of the dirty little secrets about Trump is they were trying to paint him to be Hitler. And one of the reasons why that narrative never caught on is that not only was he not a fascist dictator, but he was probably the most restrained president we've had in a century.
Yeah.
And he was very reluctant to wield executive power. I think almost to a fault. I mean, that was if there was one great flaw in the first Trump administration, it's not that he was this fascist dictator who was drunk on his own power, but he was actually a little bit too, in my estimation, too hesitant to wield power.
He wanted to be liked too much.
Right. Well, that and just he issued fewer executive orders than the three most recent presidents before him, and I understand that. We don't like executive orders generally. You don't want to have to govern that way, but it is going to require that if you actually want to drain the swamp, you're going to have to go in and wield executive power legally, but you're going to have to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the great lessons we can draw from this story, and one of the kind of great shifts in ethos that Trump has represented in the Republican Party, if not something he's outright delivered on a national political scale, is historically Republicans have seen government actors, and the left in particular, as good people who are misguided. They've seen the government as inefficient, but not necessarily malicious. And I think Trump actually represents a kind of conservatism where people are willing to recognize this is malicious. They are trying to kill people. They are incredibly callous with respect to their concern for the lives of people they consider to be politically inconvenient. It's good to see the American people finally starting to wake up to this. I think the fact that Trump was elected is a great sign that people still recognize this, and it's a winning strategy for Republicans to point that out and be clear about that instead of saying, I think my opponent is a good and decent man.
Let's jump to the story from CNN. DOJ announces charges in Iranian plot to kill Donald Trump. The Justice Department on Friday announced federal charges in a thwarted Iranian plot to kill Trump before the election. According to court documents, Iranian officials asked Farhad Shakeri, 51, in September to focus on surveilling and ultimately assassinating Trump. Shakeri is still at large in Iran, the DOJ says. It's a newly disclosed plot and marks yet another alleged attempt on Trump's life by the Iranian regime. Prosecutors allege Shakeri, who participated in recorded conversations with law enforcement, was originally tasked by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps to carrying out other assassinations against U.S. and Israeli citizens inside the U.S., but IRGC officials told Shakeri on October 7th to focus only on Trump, court documents say. He's an Afghan national residing in Tehran, told investigators that if he was unable to come up with a plan in the time frame, come on, copy editor, guys, that they would wait until after the election. Now, this story seems a little bit absurd. I mean, the guy's in Iran. I don't know what is it. They're charging a guy who they'll never get access to.
Soleimani was in Iran. They dropped a bomb on him.
Yeah, but
Soleimani was in Iraq.
Right.
Okay.
There's somebody who's leading an active war against you and then criminally charging a guy who's in another country. But I do get it. The reason why I think this story is interesting is that there have been a lot of people who have come out and said, seems a little, calm. Donald Trump wins. There's no big shadow campaign. It's just 1:30 a.m. They say everything's okay. Now, there's a lot of speculation from people have been popping up in these podcasts that they fear there may be an attempt on Donald Trump's life before he is actually inaugurated.
It's a certainty they will continue with the attempts, but
Yeah, I mean that's and you have to wonder. The Iranians wanted to kill Donald Trump. I mean, why is it that the bad guys all want to kill Donald Trump? I think it tells you something about something good about his leadership style. And I am. Look, I mean, this is unfortunately going to be an anxiety that we all have for the next 4 years because we know that the Secret Service was not, at the very least, they were not up to the task of protecting him the first time around. And I don't think when you're president you can hire your own personal security, your own private security on top of the Secret Service, as far as I know. So he's going to be at their mercy.
I want to give a big picture, little quick talk about what's going on here and why all of this is going down. Donald Trump was responsible for the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, who was the leader of the IRGC, generally thought to be number 2 in Iran. And the IRGC and Islamic Guard and Islamic Republic in Iran has had it out for Donald Trump and his associates since then, including John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, including other Iranian activists in the United States. They've been trying to target Donald Trump and many of his national security advisors and peers who worked in the administration. As far as I see this, I think anybody who's plotting to kill the president of the United States or president-elect of the United States should be on borrowed time as far as the American military and intelligence agencies should go. So,
well, I hope they protect Donald Trump. And I'm kind of concerned. I brought this up to somebody, we were talking earlier, and I said, what if something does happen to Donald Trump? Well, we looked it up this morning. The 20th Amendment says that if before the president's first term, the president-elect can make the first term, if they die for any reason, then the vice president-elect will become the president. And then I was talking to someone, they said, yeah, but Trump and JD will be on a plane or something, who knows? And I'm like, okay, maybe they shouldn't be in the same room together. January 20th, they can come together, we get him inaugurated, but I mean this not in any way lightheartedly. I am deeply concerned with the lives of Donald Trump and JD Vance and all of our politicians, even the ones I'm not quite fond of, because I hope this is not a calm before the storm. And right now, more than ever, we need serious protection for our political leaders.
I will say one of the reasons for the calm that you're talking about, and we haven't seen, a lot of us were expecting if Trump won, we'd have rioting and that sort of thing. It'd be, the 2020 riots all over again. I think one of the reasons we're not seeing that is that it was just such an overwhelming victory that I think it's totally crushed the morale and spirit of his opponents. And I'm sure they'll rally together at some point and get their energy back up. But right now, I think it's just totally shell shocked. The other thing too is that, and this is why one of the many reasons why some of us were quite happy with the JD Vance pick is that not only is he like a really impressive guy in his own right, but frankly, as many of us were saying, he needs to pick a VP candidate who gives him assassination insurance, so that before someone could think about making an attempt on his life, they're going to also have to consider the fact that, okay, well, if we take him out, then we're stuck with this guy. And is that really going to be better for us? And the answer is with J.D. Vance. Now, if you put some establishment
Haley
shill in there, somebody like that, then I think that really does put Trump in an even more precarious position. So it still is. But
I think it's an interesting conversation to have, because if you're the Iranians, I'm sure you prefer J.D. Vance, who is known to be more of an isolationist than Donald Trump was. Not that I'm sure J.D. Vance would declare war on Iran if they did assassinate Donald Trump, but I think the Iranians would be more scared of pulling anything on Donald Trump if Nikki Haley were the VP, because they know exactly what she wants to do with them.
But I want to say this. We had two libertarians on this show. We had Clint Russell and Josie the Redhead Libertarian, who both agreed when I said, if Iran were to take the life of Donald Trump, we have no choice but to declare war on them. Would you agree? You would agree, absolutely, right?
You can't kill
if they kill your president,
right? I mean, you don't have a country if you let foreign enemy nations kill your.
But
president.
what's the question if they are trying and making an effort to? How should we react?
And that's still a really great question, because there's got to be some action.
I'm skeptical of literally everything we hear from our foreign policy establishment.
Yeah,
I do believe we should also take a grain of salt with all of these reports. This could obviously spark tensions, and we've been misled by the media. I do believe Iran is a serious threat, but we should still be hyper cognizant of the reports coming out.
And obviously, we have to take threats like this very seriously. And yes, God forbid, if a foreign adversary kills your president, I'm as isolationist as they come. But there are reasons to go to war. That would be one of them. But I'm more worried about. I mean, as big a concern as that is, I'm more worried about the kind of radicalization in this country among our citizens against Trump. Now, we know that Trump just won an overwhelming victory, so most Americans voted for him and are in favor of him. But look, the media has been saying for 8 years now, and they're only going to ramp it up, that this guy is Adolf Hitler. And the thing is, as many people pointed out, when you call somebody Hitler, when you say that he's a fascist dictator and he's Hitler and he wants to destroy democracy, you are actually directly calling for his assassination. You might not be saying it because you can't say it, but if Hitler was actually alive today, we would all agree that you're justified in taking out Hitler.
It's a wink and a nod, right? Oh, he's Hitler. You know what to do.
And I put it this way. There is a thought experiment about traveling back in time and killing the baby Hitler. And the question is, it's a philosophical and moral question about taking the life of a baby who has done nothing wrong, but you know his future and what he becomes. The point is, you could be an 18-year-old in college, and they're asking you about whether it's morally right or wrong, or what are the morals of taking the life of a baby. And I get it, it's baby Hitler, but they're saying that there is an element of the population that is okay with taking the life of Hitler. Then they call Trump Hitler. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
This isn't even. I guess there's an interesting philosophical debate about whether it's okay to kill baby Hitler, but everybody agrees about adult Hitler. Like it's okay to kill adult Hitler.
So I think what Seamus and Matt don't understand is that these Planned Parenthood activists are from the future, and they're coming back in time.
Well, what I was going to say is, I really want to make this point. What I was going to say is they don't need the baby to be Hitler to want to kill them. But I just want to make this extra point. This ties into the Daily Wire. A few years ago at the March for Life, there was a controversy because Ben Shapiro brought up the baby Hitler philosophical question. He's like, well, the answer is you don't kill baby Hitler because baby Hitler was baby. And a toothpaste brand that was sponsoring the video pulled their sponsorship from that, which means a toothpaste company has an official stance on the philosophical question of whether you killed baby Hitler.
Seamus, do you abort baby Hitler?
Matt, this goes back to the previous story as well. Like, if FEMA isn't doing things for Trump supporters, and we've seen 2 attempts on President Trump's life. One was clearly because the Secret Service wasn't doing their job. Right. This speaks to the fact that it's likely that will happen in the future, at least leading up until Trump can get into office and hopefully clear some people out of the Secret Service and get competent people in, or people that aren't ideologically possessed.
Yeah, and because the fact is that on the left, and this is not true of every single person who identifies themselves as on the left, but on the sort of radical far political left, they really truly believe that if you are their political enemy, then you don't deserve to live. Your life is not worth living. They honest to God believe that, and that's what they believe about Trump. That's what they believe about. I mean, I made a joke about Project 2025 on Twitter. Which I sometimes do. We do a little trolling, folks, and I get all the. It's like we're used to it on the internet, but all these comments from people saying, "I'm going to find you and kill you. I want you to die. I'm going to find you. you deserve to be tortured and killed, and I want to do it myself. It's like someone said something like that. And it's just, it's normal. We're used to that, but like we shouldn't actually be used to that. That shouldn't be a normal response to someone that you don't agree with making a joke.
I want to pull up this year Google search because there's way too many stories to choose from. Here's from The Advocate. Project 2025 is real and coming, says Trumper Matt Walsh. MAGA says Project 2025 is the agenda, Matt Walsh. Rolling Stone, Republicans celebrate by admitting they can't wait for Project 2025. Newsweek, what do we have? Mother Jones, after when Trump fans admit Project 2025 is the agenda. The Independent, MAGA allies say they can finally admit Project 2025. Axios, I mean, these are supposed to be serious news organizations, and they saw a joke from Matt Walsh and decided it is the biggest story, it's true, and run with it.
Well, and not only that, but I'm not a Trump official. I'm not going to be in the cabinet. I would love to be in the cabinet. I mean, call me up. I'll take the job, whatever it is. But I'm just the fact that you can make an article over some podcaster is just rambling and joking around is the most absurd thing about it. I mean, it's like...
Well, and it's not just that you're not a Trump official. It's that you are somebody who has now made 2 documentaries where you're trolling people. And in your profile picture on Twitter, you are dressed as the character you troll people as. And somebody saw a tweet from you, which was an obvious troll, and they took the bait and wrote articles about it.
Yeah, it is amazing. But also on the left, they've just lost their ability to detect irony or...
they had the ability to detect irony.
Well,
I mean, I assume at some point in the past they did.
What was the
I
tweeting?
gotta be honest. I
They
don't
want to be victims.
No.
is what
I don't think they do. I do think there's an element of the media that says, "Hey, I know he didn't mean it. He's joking, but we can run the story because you can't sue for defamation because they'll say, but he really said it."
Yeah.
I genuinely believe there's a natural filtration process happening over the past 10 years for people who lack the mental capacity to understand humor and think beyond one dimension.
Well, that'll happen. Like I will sometimes have people try to fact check my cartoons. It's like, okay.
Right.
Can we see the tweet?
When I tweeted that Kamala Harris was Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini combined, and she was going to send Trumpers to camps and start 800 new wars, and a bunch of articles got written being like, Tim Pool thinks Kamala Harris is going to be like, I was literally satiring you.
Yeah.
But their brains are just made of jello, so...
And they also, but some of it is internet too. Like it's not all on the left. Some of it is on the internet. It's a thing where people, where they, and you know, they just pretend they've never heard of the concept of hyperbole, or, you know, comedic hyperbole is a really common device that people use in their everyday lives. Even something like, oh, I'm starving. You know, it's like, you're not, it's like no one thinks that you're actually claiming that you're starving to death. You're just saying that you're really hungry. And so and this happens to me all the time. I'll say something like, you know, whatever, if you drink, people who drink raw milk should go to jail or something. and then you,
the anime one's funny.
And then you have a 3-day outrage cycle. People on the right too, pretending that they don't understand that you're intentionally exaggerating just to be funny.
Well,
so
one of my favorites was JD Vance was talking in some interview, and he said, "Look, you know, my 2 sons eat like a dozen eggs a day, right? And so when you're a family and you're going to the grocery store, and then some journalist wrote, there is no way that JD Vance's children are eating like 144 eggs per week. That's ridiculous." And then he was just like, "Are you kidding me?"
It's like fact check.
I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Fact check. He did not, in fact, want to eat a horse.
It's like fact check. JD Vance's children do not get taller every time their grandmother sees them. Like, right. People say things sometimes.
Well, technically, they do get taller each time.
That's true, actually, but probably not notably.
Yeah.
While it is missing context, while it is true that they technically get taller, it would not be possible to notice.
I think the media industry attracts low IQ people. Having worked in some of these offices in New York and in the corporate press, I would find that only a small handful of the people who worked there actually had 100 or above in IQs. And I know this because I actually physically administered the test. No, I have no idea. But I met so many of these young people who were just like, when you talk to them, it was as if it was a phone dial tone. It was just, they're staring at you. You know, there's this thing for some of these people where they're looking at you, but they're looking through you.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell, like, your eyes are not focused on me. And I'm like, is there anything in there? Is anybody home?
And they're the worst kinds of dumb people. I think this is kind of the definition of a midwit, where they're they're above room temperature in their IQ, but they're not smart, but they think they're smart. So they're pretty dumb, but they think they're really smart. And that's all the media. There's been all this conversation in the media after the election about how Trump's voters are uneducated because they didn't go to college. And so you get all these pompous, people with college degrees saying, well, you guys aren't educated. You're not as smart as me. And of course, it's like, and this is part of it. You can be a very dumb person these days and have not just a college degree, but have like a PhD. You could have gone to 10 years of post high school education and actually be barely above 100 with your IQ. And so that's one of the reasons why these people are so confident of their own intelligence, I think.
And then, even the ones who get advanced degrees in fields that have traditionally been considered impressive will tell you that men can get pregnant. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
That's the funny thing, yeah. So following the election, the metric comes out that the blue states are all college educated and the red states tend to not be college educated. And then you get it's fascinating to me. I love this because these liberals will respond to political positions I have with Tim never graduated high school. And then they're like, oh, like for liberals, like, well, that settles it. Tim didn't get a high school degree, therefore nothing he says has any merit. That is indicative of impaired brain function. Mm-hmm. And they view this world through, have you been approved by the establishment as acceptable? Like it's a form of credentialism. You have to have state-sanctioned confirmation of thought. Yep. And that's your degree, that's your diploma, and that proves you are capable regardless of your positions. So when it comes to this podcasting thing, especially where they say, I love this, the article yesterday or 2 days ago from Wired where it said, the manosphere won. The left needs it's like the left doesn't even have a Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, or so help us a Tim Pool. And it's funny because just like with Joe Rogan, they did. Many of these former liberals are now sitting here voting for Donald Trump. But these people's position is, you are smart and acceptable if you march with us in lockstep, no matter what we say. And I'm like, my guys, when you said we need a Joe Rogan, why don't Democrats have a Joe Rogan? The response from people was, you did. His name was Joe Rogan. The issue is the Democrats were crapping on the floor in front of everybody and telling us we had to accept it. And when we said, please don't make this what the Democrats represent, they said, you're far right, you're a conservative. And I said, well, I guess I am now, because I'm not okay with you taking a dump on the floor.
Yeah, the thing about the Joe Rogan thing, too, is really funny to me because they don't understand at all. This is why they'll never have their own Joe Rogan, is they just don't understand at all why he's popular or how he got to the place that he is. And he didn't get there with by being known as this Republican guy who's making Republican points. Like many people, I started listening to Joe Rogan certainly at first because he'd have on whatever, like archaeologists, and they would talk about that for 3.5 hours. It's the stuff that had nothing to do with politics that made him super popular. And then from there, he started getting in a little bit more to politics, but even now, not all that much. And this is the problem. So on the left, if they tried to do their own Joe Rogan, it would just be some leftist droning on about leftist policy for 3.5 hours. And that's just not, that's not a Democrat answer to Joe Rogan.
The issue is the amorphous nature of what is acceptable on the left. So I can sit here and be like, here are my beliefs, here are my values, here's what I want, here's what I don't want. And they will stay true for the most part until someone presents me with a good argument and we'll have the discussion and the debate. And I might say, you know what, I'll consider that's interesting. The left is just like, well, today, Wimixin is the new word. And then the next day they're like, actually, it's offensive because it's exclusionary. And they go, okay, now we're not going to say Wimixin. Now it's women with a Y. Well, also, you can't be a Joe Rogan because you'd have to have a list of all the things you can or can't say updated every day by the Democratic Party.
That's exactly right. And also, it seems really insulting to a lot of their media personalities to say this, right? Like, we don't have our own Steven Crowder. What about Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert? Like, just because they're not good doesn't mean they're not your attempt.
Well, I feel like
that's what they're saying, though.
What they're saying is they don't have the
They're admitting
influence.
their people suck. Right?
They don't have the influence. And the reason they don't have the influence is because they're woke scolds. They're telling people what they must say, what they must think. And as soon as you do something interesting, like have an opposing view or anything like that, anything approaching an opposing view, they excommunicate you.
And this is what I talk about all the time on the left, that they are now making the mistake, especially when it comes to entertainment. You mentioned Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, perfect examples of this. They are now making the mistake that for so long conservatives and particularly Christian media and entertainment made, which is that they lead with the only thing that matters is the message. That's the whole thing is just the message.
Yeah.
And so you'll have Jimmy Kimmel who will get up and he'll give what's supposed to be a comedy monologue, but it's just 10 minutes of him crying because he lost the election. And it's just like, that's your job is to be funny. And so if you want to have influence, Jimmy Kimmel, you actually want to influence people towards your point of view, then you should come out and just be funny. And you sprinkle in the politics here and there. And it's the thing, the left for so long, they were very good at this. They were very good at influencing the culture, influencing people, because they were good comedians, they were good artists, they made good films, they made good shows. And they didn't lead with the message. They led with the story, they led with the joke, and they would sprinkle in the politics here and there. They'd make it a little bit subtle. So they were just kind of gradually moving you towards their values without you noticing it. And now it's kind of, and then you had the Christian answer, which was always just, well, we're going to do this movie, and it's the acting's terrible, the writing's terrible, everything's terrible, but it's a really good sermon, and they're talking about loving Jesus.
Good fundamentals.
Right. And now this interesting shift is happening where the left is making that mistake, and the right is figuring out how to not really lead with the message, just be interesting, be funny. I mean, Joe Rogan is it's an interesting guy. Sprinkles in the politics here and there, and that's how you have actual influence.
And they called him alt-right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one is just on the right. Like as soon as you cross over that line, you're a Nazi.
You're far
it's
right.
Like, there was a time when you used to have to be conservative to be considered far right. Like as long as you're a center left liberal, you're far right. But I just want to make this point about culture. At Freedom Tunes, whenever we make these cartoons, like if we have an idea that's going to make fun of a Republican, or if we have a funny plan, a conservative idea, we're not like, oh, we can't do that because we need to win. Like you
make fun of Trump all the time.
I make fun of Trump all the time. I literally had, I don't know if I can, I happened in the video, but I had something happen to you in a video recently.
Oh, right. Well, we also did a video a while ago where
I make fun of you a lot.
Fauci. So Seamus and I did a video where it's Fauci and Trump, and Fauci's testifying. And it starts with the Lord of the Rings scene where he was like, I was there the day the strength of Trump failed. And then Fauci's like, cast it into the fire, Trump destroys the coronavirus.
Yeah,
and then Trump is like, well, I was gonna, but now that you told me to, I won't do it. And it's like, it's making fun of Trump and Fauci and everybody just for fun.
Well, and even like we did, I remember a while ago just doing a silly video where it was like, college student like totally owns Ben Shapiro, and it's like a college student that with like they them pronouns or whatever. Oh yeah, exactly. It's like it's okay, and it's actually good to make fun of people on your own side. Yeah. And it's good to even make fun of some of the ideas on your own side.
I think we see all of this stuff, and it shows it's I don't know, it's communism, right? You can't defy the party line.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what do we see in communist countries? You can't have jokes. Jokes not allowed. You can't speak out in ways, and this is exactly what the left does. It's if you come out and you make a joke. I mean, how many times have we seen some leftist personality make a joke and then they get attacked and they have to take their tweet down or take down their account or something like, or apologize?
Do you remember the Simpsons bit, Worker and Parasite? When
No,
Krusty has to get rid of Itchy and Scratchies, he's like, it's an Eastern European cartoon. It's Worker and Parasite, dude. Oh man. All right, well, I guess it's like, yeah, dude, that's like the perfect embodiment.
Wasn't it like they lost the rights to
Yeah, that's right.
It's like it's a Soviet version.
Cartoon called Worker and Parasite. Yeah, it's like perfectly encapsulates this.
But
Like,
it's not just you got to toe the party line, but it's not just that. Well, you're not allowed to disagree with us. It's also that everything you do has to be about what we believe. So even if you do something or you say something that's apolitical, that's not taking anyone's side, they have a problem even with that. I mean, they do this with their celebrities now. This is the whole thing with Taylor Swift. It's like they get mad at Taylor Swift because you're not being political enough. It's like, clearly she's not a Trumper, but it's like, well, no, you can't, you have to agree with us, and you have to make everything about the fact that you agree with us.
To your point, and I've said this a couple days ago, the reason that everybody had the backlash against Bezos when he wrote the op-ed, when he said, we're not going to endorse, he didn't come out and endorse Donald Trump.
Right.
But it was as if he did. But the dissent cannot be tolerated. It is a unified message, consistent on all fronts, in every single way. If you step out of line, then they not only do they say, oh, well, we disagree and we disavow that, they literally will excoriate you and cast you out as if you're a heretic, and that doesn't make for a welcoming a group of people that you want to hang out with. It doesn't make for good comedy. It doesn't make for good stories. It doesn't make for good anything at all.
I think we should embrace the Project 2025 thing and just let them engage in their histrionics.
I think we should embrace Project 2025.
Because, General Flynn was saying this morning, you don't have 4 years. You have 18 months.
That's right.
The midterms come up, and then 6 months out, all of the squishy Republicans are terrified to do anything. So it needs to happen now.
That's right.
But I'll say this. These stories going viral and going nuts, regular people are going, huh? And, let's do this. Let me jump to this story. I'm going to pull up this one from Post Millennial. Check this out. Morning Joe reveals he doesn't know the price of butter, realizes Trump won on the economy. Check out this clip from that we got Post Millennial.
I want to talk about economy for a second. A few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, somebody who was going to be voting for Kamala Harris came up to me and said, "Oh my God, Trump's going to win." I go, "Why is that?" He goes, I went to the grocery store. Butter's over $3. I kind of laughed and I said, well, that's kind of reductive, isn't it? Said it to myself. To him, I smiled and I said, good point. But it actually, everything we're hearing after the election is...
I'm just saying, the seven.
What's that?
The $7.
What's that? Butter is $7?
Yeah.
What?
Some
Is
places.
it framed in gold? Okay.
Depends
Anyway.
on where you go. But
Okay, well, yeah, okay. Well,
$7.
anyway, my point is this, Willie. The rent is too damn high, and this guy was saying the cost of butter is way damn too high.
yep.
So the funny thing about this, when he said that, framed in gold, it's exposing one of the big reasons why they lost. So I don't think Project 2025 is going to move the needle with anybody. What we have right here is the Federal Reserve, St. Louis Fed. The average price of butter is $5. This is nationwide, $5 for a 4-pack of butter. That's
insane.
He says around $3. Micah says $7, and he goes, $7? What is it, framed in gold? Yes. That's exactly what your average middle-class, working-class guy thinks when he goes to the grocery store and he walks up and there's the unsalted butter and says $5, and he goes, what is it, framed in gold?
Yeah.
They mock the working-class people on these shows.
I do. I have to defend Joe Scarborough. I rarely do. I have to defend Joe Scarborough a little bit on this one because I will say, I probably shouldn't be admitting this, but I'm the same every time because I don't do the grocery shopping.
Exactly.
Right? I don't do the grocery shopping. I never have our whole marriage, and even going back to when we first got married and we were broke as hell. But so every time my wife goes grocery shopping, if I get a look at the receipt or if she mentions how much something costs, I'm like, that's not that much. What are you talking? What is it? So some of that I think is a man thing. We just can't, or maybe it's just me. I just can't.
I agree. I'm on the same
absorb
page
the cost of groceries.
I go grocery shopping. I look at the prices.
Well, dude, I mean, under Project
well,
2025, wives do the grocery shopping.
That's
it's
right.
just how it is.
Yeah, I don't.
2025
I haven't done a full grocery shop for our family ever. So 'cause my wife does it.
Yeah, my wife does the grocery shopping too.
I also oversee when we're ordering drinks and snacks and other things for the office, so I can see all the prices. I can see them going up. But that statement, what is it, framed in gold? Whether it's because he just has Micah, isn't he married to Micah? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, he's married to
The
that.
co-host.
Yeah. So she's telling him for exactly the
that
reason.
was his wife?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I was going to make that joke. I was literally going to make that joke. Like the woman on the panel was like, this is how much it costs.
Dear, I went to the grocery store. It was $7. Well, I think they're in New York, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, when the Democrats are screeching about Project 2025, despite the fact it's just not happening, and Matt made a joke about it, I say, yeah, let's encourage them to do that. Meanwhile, regular working people are going to be like, why is butter $5? We'll be like, don't worry, we'll help you out there, buddy.
Yeah, I remember and you're right. People don't care about. Obviously, people don't care about Project 2025 because that was basically Kamala's whole campaign, and it failed. And I can remember watching, on Sundays, watching football, and especially in the last like 3 or 4 weeks before the election, and it's just constant political ads, and a lot of Trump ads, and obviously targeting men. It's NFL Sunday, and his ads were always hitting the economy. To your point, Tim, also hitting the trans thing really hard. Trump would hit those in the ads on the football ads. Kamala, I remember one of the ads she played on NFL Sunday, watching football. It was all about fear mongering for Project 2025. And I'm watching that and I'm thinking, like, what man who's watching football is going to see this ad is like, oh, did you hear about Project 25? That sounds scary. Like nobody, even if you're on the left, you don't care about that. There's no idea how to message to these people.
That was their primary concern as the last couple of weeks of the campaign. They were like, oh my goodness, we're not getting men. Men are turning away from us. Why are they turning away? What is it? How do we message to them? And every attempt they made was as ham-fisted and ridiculous as you could possibly come up with. And so I don't think that they're going to be successful at messaging to men for a long time because they didn't learn anything. The whole thing is that, or their whole take is that men are bad.
Exactly.
I saw this tweet for the super chat from Raymond G. Stanley Jr. today in Weiss at Harper's Ferry. Land O'Lakes is $6.50. I just pulled up the website for our local grocery store. Land O'Lakes is $7.49.
Wow.
For a four sticks of butter.
Well, no, but
framed in gold, right?
To your point about the fact that a man watching football isn't going to go Project 2025. I mean, pretty much every Democratic voter over the age of 35 I've ever spoken to, except for a small handful of Tim Walz-esque exceptions, aren't Democrats because they're like, oh, they're going to ban drag. We have to bring our glitter to the polling place. Like, it's because they are worried. It's because they're worried about the prices of things. And historically, they've believed that the Democrats would support their union or, deliver higher wages to them or, raise taxes on them, whatever it is that they think can benefit them economically. But like trying to pander to men with those kinds of social issues, especially in that direction, it's not going to work.
I think they kind of stumbled into the Project 2025 fear-mongering after their first few ideas didn't work out. They were trying to focus on democracy / so-called democracy in January 6th. Wasn't resonating very hard. They tried to attack Trump as extremely pro-life. Trump dispelled that by coming out as relatively pro-choice as a Republican. And then they were like, all right, well, what else can we attack him with? None of this crap is kind of sticking. Well, everything we hate about Republicans, Project 2025, a match made in heaven, and it didn't resonate at all. The fear-mongering didn't.
It was always a really bad strategy in general, and this is another thing. The Democrats I used to at least give them credit. I mean, they're evil, but I used to think anyway that they're evil, but they're smart. And Republicans typically not as evil, but kind of dumb. That's the way it was for decades. So decades and decades. That's kind of the way it worked. And so Democrats are just like strategically running laps around Republicans, but they've gotten pretty dumb strategically in recent years. And Project 20, even leaving aside the ideology of it and politics of it, it's just the messaging is really stupid because when you go out and you have a 30-second ad and you say Project 2025, no one knows what the hell that is. And then you have to go look it up and it's this whole long thing and you got to read through it. So it's just really bad messaging. You have to find, but that's the point is that they couldn't go to the actual Project 2025 and find anything scary. If there was something scary in it, you wouldn't say Project 2025. You would just focus in on that one scary thing, but it wasn't in there because
like, whatever you hate about Republicans, just throw it. There you go, Project 2025.
I actually, got a PDF of Project 2025 and was flipping through it just to see if it was as mundane as I'd expected, and it very much is. I mean, it's like, oh my goodness, these crazy radical Republicans want to like alter the regulations surrounding Alaska's like sovereignty with fishing and wildlife permitting. You're like, what? Come on.
Walsh, on something you said, I don't know if the Democrats have been getting dumb on strategy. Well, they have been, but why have they been getting dumb on strategy? And I believe it's because they're beholden to their youth and communist base at the party now, where all of the enthusiasm is. So they're struggling with their untenable party. It's just waiting to fracture is how I kind of view this stuff. And they know that they have to, talk about these fringe issues. You need to talk about trans rights, although it polls horribly, and all these other things that are honestly where the enthusiasm in the Democratic Party comes from. So
that is the problem that they're having. But again, just if you're smart strategically, like I could have done a better job. Kamala could have hired me as a campaign director, and I would have done a better job of just selling these ideas and whatever morons they had working for. So their idea is Project 2025. Tim Wall, you bring on Tim Walz and you have him do the stupid football coach thing where they keep going back to this Wells. Like, all right, huddle up, team. I'm going to give the football halftime speech, and it's so ham-fisted. It's like 1990s era youth group. leader type of stuff in their attempts to connect with people.
I'm not kidding you. I saw a tweet that went viral after the election where someone was saying the mistake the Democrats made is they failed to properly exploit Tim Walz because he's so relatable to young men. And this is why we lost young men as voters. Just the level of delusion is absolutely off the charts. Tim Walz is absolutely not somebody who any young man looks up to and wants to be like. And I'll just put it this way, man. When you're like, we have to put tampons in the boys' bathroom, and you're not somebody who young men are like, this is a really cool guy. Like, I mean, like, but on top of that, like his gesturing and
right.
Yeah.
When they put tampons in a high school boys' bathroom, the boys ripped the thing down and vandalized. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yes. That was the high school I went to.
That was your high school?
Yes.
That was Seamus.
Yes, that was me.
Well, Tim
when I was in
Walz-
high school. No, I'm kidding. But continue.
So it wasn't your high school?
No, yeah, it was.
It was?
Yes.
So Tim Walz is known for wanting tampons in boys' bathrooms. At the same time, we know young men ridicule and reject that notion.
Yeah, of
and they
course.
thought this was going to attract young men to vote for Kamala Harris. It's absurd. And now you've got Andrew Yang going on CNN saying it was a mistake to not go on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
And Mike Cernovich, he responded to me saying, that's like saying it's a mistake for me not to drop it on Tim Pool's half pipe.
Well, I'll put
Like,
it this
she
way.
can't do
like,
it.
If you're actually someone who young men look up to as an influence or appears manly, the joke critics will make about you to kind of coalesce with their optics that you should be bad is they'll basically call you stupid. They'll call you a lunkhead. Like, if there's anyone in the Democratic Party we could point to who's like remotely masculine, I think you'd say Fetterman is like a pretty masculine seeming dude.
Fetterman?
Not super. I think more so than anyone else in the party.
Yeah, I don't know if I
more
go
so
that
than
far.
he's
not
not
giving that to
super
Fetterman.
masculine. He's not super. But I'm saying like as far as Democrats go,
he's not gay.
exactly, exactly. All right, that's a
Straight
fair
and
way of
tall.
putting it. But when you look at the way he's made fun of, as opposed to other Democrats, it's mostly like, this guy's dumb, this guy's a lunkhead. The reason Tim Walz was made fun of for like seeming gay wasn't because he did it, right? Like the reason Republicans were able to kind of coalesce around that meme and make fun of him on that basis wasn't because it wasn't resonating with young men. You get what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, to follow up on Democrats on going or not going on Rogan's podcast, I think John Fetterman actually, he went on Rogan's podcast and I think performed pretty decently and was a relatable guy and was talking about his struggles with mental illness following his campaign run and checking himself into Walter Reed for depression. And I think he came off as a relatable man.
That's what I'm saying.
Come to think of it, but only
Like
because
he's not like a macho dude, but he just seems like a more regular guy.
That's the thing. If you want to, if you want to appear masculine and appeal to men, there are, I think, a few steps you have to follow. But the first step you have to get past is you have to be authentic, and that's the. And leftists, again, don't understand this because when they think about what we think of masculinity, they have this cartoon in their mind. And so with Tim Walz, they tried to imitate that cartoon. But in reality, if you're conservative and someone asks you, like, what does it take to be a masculine man? None of us are going to say, well, you have to go hunting and you have to wear camo hats. We would say that's a version of masculinity. So there are those kinds of guys, and that's cool. But to be masculine, number one, authentic. Number two, competent. If you're authentic and you are a competent person and you're a man, and so you could be, you could go hunting and you could be that kind of guy. You could be a really smart guy who reads a lot of books and can, wax philosophical about things. That's also masculine.
You could be Jordan Peterson.
Right.
Oh man, it's like I'm the manliest guy around,
He
and
cries.
everyone knows it. No, it's true.
But he still inspires a lot of young men to get their act together, clean up.
100%. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So but they don't understand. They think that we have this super narrow, very specific idea of what it takes to be a masculine man, and what they don't understand is that we don't, and we never did, and we don't have that for femininity either. I mean, our point all along, not to take this in a different direction, but they are the ones saying that, okay, well, to be a man or woman is this thing. And so actually, if you act a different way, then, if you're a man and you act a bit feminine, now you're actually a woman, it turns out. We're the ones saying that, no, you can be, there are actually a lot of different ways to be masculine.
Yeah.
And they don't listen.
Well, and even things like you said that wouldn't be traditionally considered masculine, like if you're really, really good at chess or something, you're just at the top of your field there, or making cartoons or something. But you look at a guy like Tim Walz, and you're right, the competence is not exactly something he exudes.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but clowns are not typically considered masculine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless there's like a
sort
super
of
ripped, like
androgynous.
barbell 1920s
I don't see them
clown.
as feminine either, though. There's a weird thing going on there with
Well,
clowns.
it's just, you don't look at Tim Walz
So I guess I shouldn't have
you
called
know,
Fetterman masculine.
I don't know what the right word is, but bouncing around on stage, shaking his
Bubbly.
arms.
Yeah.
He's a bubbly
But
guy.
It doesn't, but to your point, it doesn't exude competence at all. And that's the thing. Like, you could be a guy, you could be a great chef.
Exactly.
Very masculine.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And that's like feminine, right? Women cook, but almost all the top chefs in the world are men. And no one's like, oh, he's a cook. That's like so girly. But also, you know, with it's almost like dude wipes as a phenomenon. Do you remember this? They're basically just baby wipes, but they put them in a package and called them dude wipes because they thought men would pay more for them, which is like ironically one of the most effeminate things you could possibly do. Like,
Or makeup.
I need to spend more money on a little treat for me that's going to make me feel more manly. Very embarrassing. Tim Walz kind of felt like that. Like we're just gonna call him like the dude wipes of political leaders. But maybe Tampon Tim is already stuck.
There you go. Let's jump to this story from the Post Millennial. Malcolm Nance warns minorities will face roundup under Trump, be put in camps after America voted for dictatorship.
We are blessed with lolcows.
No
like
one's
Malcolm
ever
Nance.
accused this guy of being of sound mind. He tweets, "Let's get something straight. The American people voted to absolutely make sure loads of people would die at Trump's hands. Their daughters, their wives, children, and their fellow citizens would die from school shootings, pregnancy, and easily cured diseases. It's free hunting season for blacks with immunity for white cops. Muslims and Latinos will definitely die in mass deportation runs in camps. Gaza will be bulldozed if not ethnically cleansed. Iranians who want democracy will die. Ukrainians are dying in droves already. This man is unwell."
It's I mean, it's got to be crack in that pipe. What is this guy?
The issue is, you know, I'll mention Alan Lichtman, the guy with the keys to the White House prediction who said Kamala was going to win. I feel really bad for him. He had this great track record. And then he decided at some point that CNN was trustworthy. Ugh. And this is the same thing with people like Malcolm Nance. They live in this brainwashed cult world where they watch MSNBC all day, and MSNBC is just spewing fake news for money. And these people believe it. And this is where they end up thinking that we're in, it's 1933 again.
It's open season in cop. He says it's like open hunting season for black men, and cops are going to shoot them. I mean, the last year I looked at was 2019, but it was like there were about 10 unarmed black men killed by police officers the entire year.
That's a great point. Like the left tends to believe the most exaggerated and the most ridiculous things when you know, right before and right around the time that George Floyd died, there were, if you asked your typical liberal, you know, they would say that there's probably hundreds to thousands of black men killed by police every year. And things like, like Donald Trump is going to deport everyone that's brown. It doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. You're all going to go. That's what they're talking about on X and TikTok. And they're going to outlaw abortion. It is all histrionic. It is all the most extreme, ridiculous caricature. And I understand that generally the left has less of an understanding of the right than the right does of the left. The right will listen to the arguments made by the left and listen to the things that they want, and the right the left just tends to look at the right as a caricature of what the most evil is. But you'd think at some point they would begin to attempt to understand, and I don't think they will.
But let's just to be clear, this guy doesn't believe any of that nonsense. I mean, he doesn't actually believe that. There might be the most, if you go on TikTok and you see these girls screaming in the car, and most of that is also fake, by the way. But if you're going to find anyone who actually believes that stuff, it's going to be the TikTok women screaming in cars. This guy doesn't believe it. And you know he doesn't believe it because if you actually believe that, then you would respond a certain way. And one thing you would do is you would leave the country. I mean, if you actually believed that a fascist dictator is going to run the country now, it's open season on you. Like anyone can shoot because he's a black guy. Anyone can shoot you. People are getting rounded up and put in camps, and they're not going to cure diseases anymore. I don't know where that comes from. If you really believe that, then you would just leave. It would be an easy decision to leave the country, flee for your life. But he's not going to do that, and because he's not sitting around in fear. He's quite comfortable, and this is just rhetoric on his part.
Well,
I do think there are going to be some people who leave.
Yeah.
Celebrities who said that.
God willing.
I think this time it may be true. And you know why? There are two lists that we're hoping will be released by the Trump administration.
All right. Yeah.
Yep. So I think some people might want to get out before Donald Trump gets into office. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just want to say this. I think because Donald Trump threatened to assassinate Liz Cheney, which is a very real thing that he actually said, and it's a true story and not fake news. I think Joe Biden has a responsibility to help the Cheneys leave the country right now for their own safety. And I think he also has to help every journalist who repeated that story leave the country, because Trump is going to be vindictive.
I totally agree. That's very kind of you also to
Thank you.
be thinking about their well-being.
Look, when you have a presidential candidate making those kinds of unbelievable threats, something has to be done to protect those people.
Yeah.
This line about Muslims and Latinos is especially crazy. I don't know. Muslims and Latinos that were they were soon about to die in mass deportation in roundup camps. Why did he throw Muslims in there? I don't know. Are they here illegally as well?
Why did Trump throw Muslims in there is the question, Elaad.
But the Muslims voted for Trump.
It's true. And so did the Latinos.
Right. And he's like, well, they were voting for, because Trump's a racist or whatever. And it's just like, I kind of think, what I love about this is they're basically screaming in the face of Latinos, you're stupid.
Yeah.
You have no agency, you're dumb. But what's funny is that Yale study that found white liberals talk down to black people. They pretend to be less competent than they are when they speak to minorities. And this is exactly it. They think the poor minority is too stupid to figure out what they need for their families.
Yep. There is a little incoherence in his foreign policy, his geopolitical policies here. He's complaining about the Russians with Ukrainians dying. He's complaining about the Ayatollah in with the Iranians. But then he's also saying the Israelis will be emboldened to be genociding Gazans.
Yeah, right.
So it's not coherent here. It's because the Iranians are actually attacking the Israelis and the Iranians are saying they're trying to prevent, alleged genocide in Gaza. And all of this is a mishmash. And Malcolm Nance is happy to see Donald Trump reelected because it's good for him personally, and it's going to line his pockets. Because now, whenever he says stuff like this, it will go mega viral. Attention to MSNBC will be through the roof. MSNBC did their best under their first Trump administration, and Malcolm Nance is now about to be a part of MSNBC's. That's a lineup for the second term.
MSNBC is going to turn into some liberal YouTube channel with one guy left on it, and they're going to get 40,000 views per video.
It's more left than the Young Turks is nowadays, especially with Anna and Cenk behaving the way that they have lately.
Yeah, and they have, but I think that's a good point and something to keep in mind, that a lot of these people in the corporate media, Trump is basically a lifeline for them. He's going to keep them somewhat relevant for the next 4 years. They're not relevant and they have no influence, but at least it gives them kind of a niche for 4 years where they could just, attack the Trump administration. And so really, I think many of them are quite, I think you're right. I think a lot of them are actually happy that he was elected.
Also, this line here that women will die from getting pregnant. All of these abortion advocates in the abortion lobby know that that's not true, that women are not going to be prosecuted and never are for having miscarriages. But they're comfortable saying that, even though it means that some women who actually are experiencing complications from a miscarriage will be less likely to go to a hospital and therefore more likely to die because they believe that they'll go to jail for having a miscarriage, because it will help them to try to push back against abortion laws, which cut into the profits of slaughtering unborn babies.
What I love about this line as well is that when you say something like, we should not allow abortions at 9 months, they say, oh, that's an edge case. These things never happen. Why are you even arguing it? And then they go, here's one woman who died recently from a complication. And it's like, do they not follow the same logic?
Well, and it's not even true, though.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like, they will argue an edge case and say, this is why we must have universal access. And then when you say, well, I disagree because it goes too far, they say, oh, those are edge cases. It doesn't matter.
They only talk, when it comes to abortion, all they talk about is edge cases. The entire conversation is, right, rape, incest, life of the mother. That's all they want to talk about with abortion. That's always been the case. Those are, you're talking about less than 1% of all cases fall into that category. And really, life of the mother cases are, that actually doesn't have, you never need an abortion to save a woman's life. So, but that's all they ever do. They never want to talk about the 99%. But I think this is another one of the great and really encouraging takeaways of Trump's victory is that, we were told, even by conservatives, we've been told for 2 years now that Roe being overturned is going to be a political disaster for Republicans, and we're going to have this. It's going to be an uprising of pro-abortion feminists, and they're going to exact their revenge. And it just didn't happen. It did not materialize.
I got it for you guys. Mm-hmm. I know exactly how you can get abortion banned. 100%. It's really easy. First, you're going to need a Democrat administration in power Then you need to win a midterm with Republicans. The Republicans need to tank the economy. Then once everyone's just super angry about the economy, we can squeeze through any laws that you want. You can ban anything because people just, well, it's the economy, stupid. So my point here is, while Democrats were screaming at the top of their lungs that abortion was the principal issue, and they were trying to make it an issue, the only thing anybody cared about was that butter was $7. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not the biggest issue for Americans. I think it ranked at number 5. And I'm not saying it's not important to you guys. I'm just saying, but you want to win an election, you go in economics.
And you're right, it did rank highly. But remember, when wanting to protect democracy or thinking democracy was under threat ranked highly, people assumed that meant that liberals were concerned that Trump was going to destroy democracy.
Right.
But then most of the people who answered that they were concerned about the future of democracy actually ended up voting for Trump. That's what we learned from the exit poll.
Yep.
So similarly, people saying abortion was a very important issue to them doesn't necessarily mean that they were coming from the pro-abortion angle.
So Trump's Supreme Court was largely obviously responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, but Trump has since then said, I think he was not confused, but said that he was a little bit reluctant with the overturning, and now he said that he wouldn't move forward with any sort of national abortion ban. Do you have any thoughts moving forward on who's going to be the guy to get you to the next level with banning abortion? Like Trump helped overturn Roe v. Wade. Do you think he's the guy to do the next step, or do you see him sort of running away from it?
What do you mean the next step?
I mean, I'm assuming you want to see a national abortion ban.
Yeah, I would.
So yeah,
if it were up to me, it would be federally banned from conception. Period.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that. I don't think Trump's not going to do that.
Define abortion.
The intentional violent termination of a pregnancy.
I think, and the reason why I asked you to do this is because I think
you don't need violent, actually. Intentional termination of a pregnancy.
Intentional killing.
There was that Jubilee video, I think was with Ben Shapiro, and the woman said, no, you're wrong, abortion is not that. That's not what it is. And then I think it was Ben who said this. This liberal woman viewed abortion as just like a miscarriage or something.
Or like they'll say early deliveries. It's like, shut up. That's not
no,
what
she was saying like giving birth is an abortion or something.
Yeah,
like
it's just silly.
Well, that was the weird thing when I think we had someone on this show and she argued that birth was abortion. And I was like, what? Because it ends the pregnancy.
But, right.
And I was like, no, abortion. Because I actually had this argument with Seamus like 2 years ago, and I was wrong. Because I said, no, abortions could be in the instance of, say, like a miscarriage. And Seamus told me I was wrong. And then I ended up not believing him and being wrong. And then we looked up the definition by law and Planned Parenthood. And I was like, oh, Seamus was right the whole time. Abortion, Planned Parenthood defines it as the intentional termination of a pregnancy that ends the life of the baby.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, if you are just ending the pregnancy itself, there's yes, I guess you could
kill the baby.
Right. You could refer to delivering a baby as ending the pregnancy, but like no one talks that way. But that's also an important point. This is the point about late-term abortions is that, and this is every case when you hear about, well, there needed to be an abortion to save the woman's life. And this is almost always later term.
Do you see that commercial they made?
With the guy?
Okay, sorry to interrupt her. But the woman's on the ground and she's bleeding and the guy's like, doctor, what do I do? And he goes, she needs an abortion. And then the Republican congressman grabs the phone and is like, no. Yeah. And I was just like, if your wife falls on the ground covered in blood and you don't call 911, you call your physician, and on top of that, your physician doesn't advise you to call 911, you are crazy people.
Yeah, you need to probably need to get a new doctor. But but that's the thing with a late-term abortion, when there can be cases where the pregnancy needs to end in order to preserve the woman's life, and so the baby needs to be delivered, but killing the baby, aborting the baby is an extra step that obviously is not necessary to preserve the woman's life. You could just deliver the baby and then try to save the baby's life. So every time they're saying that, well, you need to get the abortion to preserve the woman's life, what they're saying is that we need to deliver the baby and also kill the baby in the process, which is obviously a totally medically unnecessary.
But that's post viability. So in a circumstance where the baby's not going to survive on its own, maybe it's too soon in the pregnancy, but the health of the mother is jeopardized. I've never heard a conservative argue that there should not be attempts to save the mother's life.
No. Well, also, it's even worse than that. You're absolutely right that that's how they frame this when they claim that there are medically necessary abortions, which there aren't. But on top of that, when they're saying medically necessary abortions, they're also saying for reasons of mental health. This woman will be depressed if she doesn't get an abortion. It's like, She'll be more depressed if she does.
I guess, Matt, one of the things I was trying to get at, it seems as though over the past couple of decades, Republicans have become less and less pro-life, and Donald Trump is clearly the most pro-choice Republican we've ever had. What do you think about the direction of the Republican Party in relation to this issue?
Yeah, I think if it were totally up to me, as I said, I'd have a federal abortion ban. That's not what's happening. Trump's not going to do that. I don't think any Republican president in the foreseeable future is going to do that, is going to campaign on that. And so this does move into the states, and that's just, I believe in like acknowledging reality for what it is, and then trying to operate within reality rather than demanding that reality be something that it's not. And so that's the reality that we're operating in right now as a pro-life movement. We're operating in a reality where there's no federal ban. There's probably not going to be one anytime in the near future, and so it becomes a state-by-state battle. And so that's the future. That's where we need to fight. It is in the states. And
I mean, moreover, there seems to be a pro-choice consensus among both parties. I feel like Republicans are now split, and Democrats are probably around 80-20.
Depends on what you mean by pro-choice.
Yeah, and also,
14 weeks, give or take a couple of weeks.
I don't know if I go so far as to say consensus among. I mean, there are plenty of, very pro-life Republicans, even in elected office, and I think what you're finding in some cases is pro-lifers and Republicans adopting this kind of incremental approach to protecting babies, which I agree with. Incrementalism, all incrementalism means is that I am going to select the best possible option available to me right now. And so if the best thing I can do right now, if the best thing I can achieve right now is protecting babies past X point, then I'll take that. I'll take that now. And then I'm going to immediately start working for the next thing. I mean, I say the same thing about when we're the fight to protect children from gender, quote unquote gender transition.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's incremental. So I want to protect the children from this this butchery. I also happen to think personally that it shouldn't be legal for doctors to do that to anybody. I don't care how old you are.
I think the incrementalism, though, is we're seeing it go in the opposite direction. I mean, Bush was pro-life, Mitt Romney was extremely pro-life, and I think Trump is almost...
And Trump is too, and Trump got Roe overturned.
I don't think Trump is pro-life.
Well, he says he is, but I do think this is kind of an absurd argument that those presidents you mentioned did not get Roe overturned. And so it's fascinating to me that there are pro-lifers who are like, I would not vote for Donald Trump. I'm like, he's given you more than any Republican president's ever given you on the issue.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with your premise. I do think that Trump is more pro-life than, say, Bush was. He appointed the pro-life justices. He had more of
an opportunity, though, because Bush did what? Clarence Thomas, who was extremely pro-life, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm talking about W. Bush. W. Bush.
Well, let's
and Roberts, right? Didn't W. do Roberts? Who was really lame.
And here's the other thing. This is not a small thing. This is significant. Trump is the only president who spoke at the March for Life.
Yeah.
And I've been to the March for Life for 8 years. The March for Life was happening in D.C. under Bush's tenure. Never showed up one time. And that really tells you something. So I think that at a minimum, Trump is as pro-life as past Republican presidents. I think you can make an argument that he's more. He's not as pro-life as I am, but I don't think that he's a step back on that issue.
Let's jump to this story from Fox News. Special counsel Jack Smith moves to drop Trump election interference case. President-elect Trump promised during the campaign to fire Smith within 2 seconds after taking office. Hear, hear. And then Jack Smith ordered by House GOP to preserve all documents related to Trump cases. So, it's looking like these people are scared.
Yeah.
Trump didn't need to even get into office, and Hamas is already calling for an end of the war. Jack Smith is already backing off. Judge Merchan is signaling he may get rid and dismiss these 34 charges against Donald Trump. That's it. This was clearly an attempt by Trump's political opponents to use the legal system to stop him from winning an election, and he won it.
There's an argument that I made the other day about the price of energy and how when you have someone like Trump in office, the price of energy might just start going down because the futures market, he'll signal to business that there's going to be fewer regulations, making it easier to do business. The futures market will respond to that, and actually the price of gas might actually go down because of it. And it's not just that's not exclusive to economic things. You see the behavior of other countries because he won the presidency. You see the behavior of Putin. You see the behavior of Hamas. You see that because Trump is coming into office, just like when that they're responding to Trump coming into office, just like when Reagan was coming into office, Iran responded.
Yep.
The idea that the United States lives in a vacuum and that the president, the president is of no consequence to other countries or to the economy or to anything else. The United States is the most consequential country in the world, without question, bar none. And so when the United States moves, the rest of the world responds every single time. You know, it's said that when the U.S. has a sneeze, the rest of the world gets a cold. And those kind of things are real. And this is an unmitigated positive thing that Donald Trump is coming in. There have been zero negative things happen in the world since, like,
I know, it's like
on the international scope or whatever, foreign policy scope, just because Donald Trump is going to be in office.
And then it's just things are gradually improving. That was a joke I made to Seamus. He should make a cartoon where Trump's walking through his inauguration and everything's just getting better and improving and people are getting richer and a guy's like, the war's over. Then he gets there and he's like, I guess my job's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing. People are going to respond to the pressure that they believe the Trump administration will put on them, or the lack of pressure that the Trump administration is perceived to be putting on their enemies, or will put on their enemies.
But take a look at this from Real Clear Politics. Voters anxious about democracy. Take a look. They asked people, democracy in the U.S. is very secure, somewhat threatened, very threatened. And among the very threatened cohort, they voted for Trump at a 4% edge.
Yep.
And so what does that tell you? The people in this country who think democracy is being threatened aren't concerned about January 6th. They're concerned about Jack Smith.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And for good reason. I mean, for good reason. It's honestly a smarter way of looking at it, right? Like, firstly, January 6th is nowhere near what they made it out to be. It was nowhere near as bad as the COVID riots and the 529 insurrection. But also, even if we wanted to claim that it was, like, the guy with the knife, or lack of a knife, but just the big, scary dude who threatens to rob you when you have $5 on you, seems like a more immediate threat. But, you know, when someone hacks your bank account and empties it, that's actually way worse for you overall. And I would say that's what Jack Smith represents as opposed to the J6ers. Though, of course, I don't actually give assent to the idea that that's what the J6ers are.
I think that the argument that Elon Musk made on the Joe Rogan podcast actually resonated with the American people. That the situation with immigration, with the HHS program, the Refugee Resettlement Program, it's being run by the Health and Human Services Department, transporting people that show up at the border and they say that they are looking for asylum. They bring them into the country. They transport them to purple states, and with the goal of those people becoming citizens and voting for Democrats. There's intent in that. And I think that the American people realized it. I think that the American people believe, because of the influx, because everyone knows that there's way more, there's like 10 or whatever, 15 million illegals in the country in 4 years, which is just an astronomical number. And I think because of that, the American people were like, look, the additional people in the United States, they're going to dilute my vote. They're going to make my vote mean less. And you saw the things that were happening in small towns like in Ohio. And whether you think they were actually eating the dogs or eating the cats is totally irrelevant. It brought focus to those people that were suffering because of a massive influx. Their town, doubled in population, or maybe it was, I don't know the exact number, but it was a massive, massive increase that no small town could ever hope to support. And people saw that and they're like, yeah, this is a bad thing. The influx of people makes housing more expensive. The influx of people does not automatically make prices go down. So I think that the American people saw this as a threat to their ability to influence their representatives. And so that's the actual threat to democracy that they saw. And it wasn't Donald Trump's going to end democracy. It was the Democrats are using my tax money to dilute my voting ability and dilute the impact of my vote.
And to add on to that, these people don't even have to vote to have an electoral impact because congressional seats are delegated by population based on the census. So these people, even if they don't vote, even if they never become citizens, will still have political power allocated as a result of them existing there. So,
exactly.
Not that they won't eventually get citizenship, or in some cities they don't even require citizenship to engage in voting for their lower level seats.
I do wonder. I guess what most conservatives would say is that, especially when you look at those results, that Trump voters think that the threat to democracy was coming from the other end. Most conservatives would probably say that a lot of voters were concerned about the legal cases, and that was the threat against democracy, is the lawfare, which is probably true. But I also wonder, I kind of think that all these criminal cases, that of course all this they weren't even really criminal cases. It was not about they weren't even trying to throw Trump in jail. I mean, they would have loved to put him in jail if they could, but that was like a secondary benefit.
Yeah.
It was really just about making a political case against Trump to stop him from being elected. And I sort of think that I don't think that I think it had zero impact at all. I don't know if anybody was really thinking about that when they went to the polls. I think it's like it just had zero impact. It was a total non-factor altogether, which maybe I'm wrong about that, but to me that's in some ways the most delicious kind of poetic justice, is if they went through all this effort with all the lawfare, and it's like nobody cared at all. It might as well not. It made zero impact.
Yeah.
Because people were just so tuned out of the whole thing.
So I actually asked this to Knowles yesterday. Obviously, a lot of people went after Trump and the former Trump administration officials. For example, Steve Bannon. Do you believe the Trump administration moving forward should seek retribution to some people who have broken the law, Democrats who've attacked him, or kind of, be more conciliatory moving forward?
Oh, retribution.
And do you have anybody in mind in particular?
Well, the problem is that the list is so long. I don't know that you could start. And also in the federal government, the people that are, we opened the show with the FEMA thing. The people that are in a corrupt way wielding the power of the federal government in illegal and corrupt ways, we don't even know their names. And should Trump get in there and find these people and root them out, get to the core of it, and prosecute them and throw them in jail? Yes, if that's what we mean by retribution, yes, that's absolutely he needs to do that. And I wouldn't even call it retribution.
Exactly.
It's not even retribution. So because retribution makes it sound petty and personal and like he's only just concerned about the people that annoyed him or frustrated him. No, this is about finding the corrupt people, the people that are breaking the law, and holding them accountable. It's about justice, like giving people what they deserve. And that's what it is to me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. When it comes to the lawfare against Donald Trump, too, obviously the left is projecting that's a clear-cut case of retribution. It doesn't have anything to do with an actual crime being committed. And I think part of the reason that the voters who seem to care about that the most were people who were worried about it rather than people who actually thought that the fact that he was a convicted felon carried any water is a product of the fact that, your average voter isn't all that interested in the abstractions, right? What they're concerned with, again, as we talked about earlier, is the price of butter. Not like, did he fail to properly disclose a specific campaign expenditure, or did his lawyer, and was he aware of this at the time? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And especially when you consider the fact that the charges that were brought against him were a misdemeanor and then raised to the level of a felony, and then the statute of limitations was extended. It's just, I don't think people
It's so hard to keep track of all the cases against Trump. I'm not even 100% sure of this, but I think the Jack Smith was the classified documents case. There were so many cases against stuff. There was the January 6th stuff. There was the tax stuff in New York. I feel like I'm forgetting a couple.
Yeah,
what happened in Georgia again? There was just so many cases.
Yeah,
I don't know how the average American could pay attention and keep track of all
I don't
the
think
cases.
they did. I think he's right. A lot of that stuff just kind of became like in the fuzz or whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, most Americans were like, which case is that again? How many cases are there? Weren't even paying attention. And there was always also this weird messaging problem for Democrats when it came to this, because they were going around saying, oh, he's a you're going to elect a convicted felon? Well, and leave aside the fact that what he was convicted of is totally bogus. These are the same people who for years have been telling us that just because someone has a past criminal history, that doesn't reflect on them at all. It's totally irrelevant. And we should be rehabilitating people, second chances, and all of that. So they should be celebrating that. I mean, if they really believe he's a convicted felon, this is a great story of redemption.
Exactly.
Is it not? I mean, by their own logic?
There's always arguments to be made that the left doesn't actually believe in hypocrisy at all. Like they'll use it against you if you allow them, but they don't actually believe in hypocrisy because they don't believe any of the arguments they make. Their only function is to attain power. So the arguments they make one day will switch the next as soon as they're no longer functional. So when people say stuff like that, I would just always be like, well, the founders were felons according to the Crown, so up yours.
Yeah, although the left, and that's the thing about it. We say most people think hypocrisy is saying one thing and doing another, and that's not actually what hypocrisy is. Hypocrisy is just pretending that you believe something you don't actually believe.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I mean, these people are hypocrites in the truest sense of the word.
Yeah, no, it's very true, and of course, it never applies to them.
I looked it
Doesn't
up.
matter.
I
It's
think Jack
also-
Smith was the January 6th case, just to
Well, I
just get my cases in order.
I just want to mention this: like, when your values are complete and total licentiousness, it's impossible to be a hypocrite. Like, what standard are you being held to?
Well, when you're a relativist, right? When
Yeah.
when you believe the truth is relative, and we all have our own truth. This is my truth. I'm standing on my truth. And if you actually believe that, which they do, I mean, this is the core of leftism, is that it's relativism, that they really do believe that we all have our own truth and our own reality. And if that's the case, then yeah, you can't really be. There is no double standard because everybody lives in their own universe and has their own standards according to that.
If people have different truths, then there is no real truth. And
I mean,
can never get
it's-
on the same page then.
Your truth is literally an absurdity. It's self-refuting. There's no such thing as your truth.
Yeah. I'm just over here tracking the old results, which we're still waiting for. A couple minutes before we go to Super Chats. But Republicans may only end up with 220 right now.
Is there an update on Carrie Lake? In
Kerry Lake doesn't seem to be improving enough as time goes on in Arizona. There's still 83% reporting, 17% left, but she's still down by like 35K. Looks like 34. And so Charlie Kirk had hope because at the time, with 500,000 outstanding, she only needed 51% of the remaining to come in for her, and she'd end up winning. But she's still down 34. There's a possibility, but I don't know for sure. I guess we'll have
Arizona's
to
such an interesting state. They had John McCain as their senator, something like a decade ago, and to flip over to somebody like Carrie Lake, it's
a bunch of last-minute mail-ins came in for Jackie Rosen, so she won Nevada, defeating Sam Brown. None of these candidates got 39,364. Would you look at that?
Wow.
And Sam Brown was a war veteran, a combat veteran, I believe.
That's pretty wild. Yeah, and it's so the AP said PA is over, so it's 53, but decision desk won't call it. Bob Casey is not giving up, and he's saying, no, we're going to get it, despite the fact he's down nearly 40,000. And the AP said with the remaining ballots in, they don't come from anywhere that Casey was winning, so there's no point. But, can't blame him for trying, I guess. Republicans should be doing the same thing.
Wisconsin and Michigan are so interesting here because these are states Trump won. And
well, what's really fascinating is that Ruben Gallego got more votes than Harris. Like a lot, like a couple 100,000 more.
She's really running below the ticket, huh? Or well, she was.
That's pretty crazy.
That is very weird.
Yep. All right, everybody. We're going to go to Super Chat, so smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. Because all of our members on the Discord server want to be friends with you. And they really do. They're always asking me, saying, Tim, you got to shout the Discord out more. We got tens of thousands of people hanging out. They got morning shows. They got pre-shows, after shows. It is a party, and you are invited. As a member, you are supporting this show. You make it all possible, so thank you very much. Here we go. Dalamar says, sup, victory. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you only got a couple hours left, I believe, but if you go to castbrew.com and use promo code VICTORY, all caps, you get 30% off. So I'll say that one more time because it's only good until the end of the night. Victory is the promo code, all caps, castbrew.com, 30% off. Get your coffee. Buy it today. Scooby Dragon says, howdy, people. Howdy. All right. Raybert G. Stanbert Jr. says, gentlemen, just want to mention that while we have made a big win in protecting our democracy this week, the winter arc is upon us soon. Hit the gym, turnpike, the trail, make them speechless. How many of you made your goal of being fit by the election? That was something we had going on our server, Fitcast, where I said everybody should be in shape by the time the election happens. And perhaps because everyone was in shape, Trump won.
That's why.
What counts as being in shape? What kind of shape are we going for here?
We were looking for personal improvement.
Personal improvement, yeah. So, like if someone's 300 pounds and you get down to 250, like, hey, that's good. You're working on yourself. That's fantastic. So some people, I think, actually ended up getting ripped. They were like, let's go. And now they can carry 2 Seamus at once.
Wow.
That's a hefty load.
Two Shamoose.
The world couldn't handle 2 of me. All right.
No, that's right. Garrett Elgis has been watching the Daily Wire for 5+ years and Timcast for almost 2 years. Amazing seeing this team up. All my favorite political commentators in one place. Though sadly, I must say Knowles is my favorite MAGA 2024.
I thought you had good taste until the very end there.
That's a disgrace.
Yeah, well, he called you a stone cold psychopath on the show the other day.
He did, yeah.
Is that what Noel said?
Yeah.
You do have an amazing ability to deadpan. Like the movie was great and it was really impressive.
The deadpan's good.
The point was that the talent of Matt Walsh is your deadpan delivery of your trolling is just, it's people can't tell if you're serious or not. And then he said, well, he's a stone cold psychopath. So
Well, can I
I'll take it. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, can I ask you a question about, so like when you're in a room surrounded by a bunch of like DEI experts and groveling liberals, and you say, you know, I'm sorry, I thought I had 17 black friends, but it might have been 15. Like, what is going through your head in that moment as you're talking to those people?
well, that was you apologize.
like, what is happening in turn? No, I'm like curious, like what's going through your head?
In that moment, I was proud of myself for thinking of that line. So. I just and you know, because when you're making a movie too, you're always you know, you get a line in there or something, you think, okay, well that's going to make it in, that'll make the cut. But there's a trailer. Sometimes I'm doing the trailer in my head, you know, like that's a trailer moment.
It was
you ever find it hard
just
not to
to
laugh?
clarify, what was so good about it was you initially said you had 17 black friends, and then later on when they got mad at you, you apologized like it might have been 15, as if that's why they were mad at you.
Is it? But I'm also curious too, because I think if I was in that situation, it would be really hard for me not to crack up. Like, do you not feel any temptation to laugh at all?
I do. Yeah, I get that question a lot, but I think that there were certainly moments throughout certain scenes where I had to stifle laughter. Well, in fact, it was kind of convenient because the one scene that to me was the funniest in the moment was Race to Dinner, and I was wearing a mask, a COVID mask for that, so I didn't have to worry as much about keeping a straight face. But usually, through most of it, in the moment, it's super uncomfortable and awkward, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And you also have to keep in mind that, you know, it's 5 minutes in the movie, but it was an hour and a half in real time. And so it's like exhausting and awkward, and these people are miserable to be around. So it's not a whole lot of fun. And I'm also, a lot of what I'm hearing makes me kind of angry. I'm mad at what they're saying. So it's more of a temptation to start yelling at them.
That's
and
fair.
call, you know. So yeah, there's not as much of a temptation as you would think to start laughing.
Has anybody in Hollywood reached out and told you they loved your movie yet?
Yes.
Oh, nice. We'll keep that off the record.
I will not.
We will keep those
no,
off the record, but it happened.
With Trump winning the popular vote, I think we're going to start seeing that shift where people, you know, we've been having these discussions about, with Trump winning this popular vote, do we now storm into the establishment media spaces? Basically, like, you go to these advertisers, you go to these production companies and say, you now know for a fact you are the minority market share. If your business wants to make money and operate as a business, the money's here, not there.
I don't think it's ready yet.
A lot of these companies don't actually care about politics. In their mind, they're thinking, we don't want to be fringe political. So when the leftists were saying, well, they're all white supremacists, these advertisers, these production companies are just like, we don't want to be involved with whatever that is, so just disavow. Well, now we got a popular mandate. Trump won the popular vote. Now we can easily just go and say, and look at this, Trump's at 74,254,000 votes. So that's he's hitting his numbers from last time around. Harris is at 70. She's down 11 million. You can now go to these companies and say, hey, guess what? You're on the wrong side of history. You bet on the wrong horse. Come back to the majority market share where the businesses lie and the money is, and we will welcome you. And then we'll displace the wokeness.
Yeah.
Do you think that will happen, or are you...
Wishful thinking.
Nope, I don't think it's wishful thinking at all. When Bud Light tanked, Target tanked, Disney lost $1 billion. You're going to get some business consultant. He's going to say, "I don't care about politics. I just want to sell soda." And now you're going to go to Bud Light and you're going to say, "You learned your lesson, right? You sided with this minority fringe element, thinking they were popular, and it burned your company to the ground."
Literally.
I think we will see that in corporate, with brands in the corporate world. I think in the entertainment world, I think it's going to be a while before, there are a lot of people in Hollywood that agree with us and that if they could do whatever they want, they'd make movie. You know, they'd make very different kinds of movies.
I want to just say, sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No, that was it.
Oh, as of right now, Donald Trump has surpassed his 2020 total vote count.
Interesting.
So he currently has more votes now than he got in 2020. Whereas Kamala Harris is currently down just about 11 million votes.
How much of California's reporting in?
And California's currently at 70%.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of people kept saying, where's the 20 million votes for Harris? And I pointed out, at the time, we were only 60% California reporting, so she can expect to get another couple million. I think there's no way she's getting the popular vote, but she may end up with like 71 or 72 million.
It's crazy considering how many Biden got. It was 80 plus million?
81.
81 million in the past election.
Indeed. Dovak says, can't wait to see all that remains at Sonic Temple. Love you guys and keep it up, Phil. Love hearing your takes and hearing that there are popular musicians who aren't afraid to speak out against the machine.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
You know, we're not quite the machine, right? We've taken the popular mandate. If these companies are to turn around, do we become the machine? If we're the majority controller of the institutions.
It's like Nietzsche says that when you fight the abyss, you stare into it. Don't become it, man.
That's actually the point. Like, that's right. Like,
I
you
agree.
can be like in a position of influence without being, without abandoning the principles that the U.S. has been built on, and that I feel like that's the point of fighting back against all this stuff, is not to take power so we can be oppressive about the things that we want. It's to be in positions of influence so that way we can restore a country that respects the rights of everybody and respects people's differences and says, there are things that we're going to disagree about, but we're not going to, excommunicate people from public life because they have the wrong opinions.
Yeah, we're also very far off from even having the temptation to be the machine. Or this is not a problem that we're going to have anytime soon, because to be the machine, you have to own all the institutions, and we just conservatives. We're not even close to that at this point. I mean, the institutions are owned by the left still now. And this is a generational. It's a generational fight. It's not going to happen.
Right wingers
We want
are
a battle.
They're so much more individualistic than the left wing, who want to work together and who has more affinity towards something like socialism, as opposed to right wingers who they'd rather do it themselves. They don't want to join together and work together. They want to do it themselves, as opposed to a left winger who they'd rather go work at an established media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the right wing guy rather do it himself.
Well, also, it's not just a question of our opinions or perspectives or biases becoming ascendant. It's a question of whether we will lie to people to make that happen and maintain that hegemony or maintain that hegemony. Because the problem with the media isn't simply that they have a bias. Like, that is a problem, but they lie all the time.
And they demand that you lie.
Exactly.
It's more than that. It's, men can become women. No, I'm not ever going to believe that. Like, I might be polite to someone that's trans, but that doesn't mean that I'm ever going to believe that a man can become a woman.
Exactly.
Did Michael Rappaport end up supporting Trump or no?
I believe so, but I'll check.
Remember when he did that whole thing where he was like, voting for Donald Trump is on the table?
Yep.
And that was over Israel? Because right now, Andy knows reporting that far-left extremists are gathering outside of the Vic Theater in Chicago to shut down his performance over his support for Israel.
So comic Michael Rappaport says Harris lost his vote over Israel.
Yep.
So,
When did he say that?
August 1st.
Yeah, but he came back after something happened and said, Trump is off the table. That doesn't mean he voted for Harris, but I do think it's funny that these like staunch anti-Trump people, it's like, okay, well, Michael Rappaport, you're officially politically homeless. The far left is going after you because you support Israel, and you don't got any allies on the Trump side. So
Rappaport actually endorsed Donald Trump.
What? When?
I'm looking at this article came out a week ago.
What?
I'm looking at Newsweek full list of celebrities endorsing Donald Trump, Kid Rock, Mel Gibson, and more. But Rappaport was on the list during a November 2023 episode of his I Am Rappaport podcast. The actor said he would vote for Trump if Biden didn't get the Israel-Hamas situation under control. If it comes to Pig D Donald Trump and smoking,
I don't believe that's correct, because he came back out later and said his first statement was, voting for Pig Dick Donald Trump is on the table. And then like 2 months later, he was like, nope, it's off the table. I'm not doing it. It's not going to happen. So I don't know his official position.
And I will say this, though. I'm somebody who's extremely pro-Israel. Michael Rappaport is as well. He makes pro-Israel people, I think, look so stupid. Some of these pro-Israel advocates are some of the... who aren't doing good for the cause, in my opinion. And I think Michael Rappaport is one of them.
I don't
just
really
want to put that out there.
I don't pay any attention to him. I'm curious, what would you say he does?
He's like screaming into a phone very aggressively, super close to his face, and like making dumb faces and just sounding like a whiny little girl.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he
I don't know who you're
gets real
convincing.
close to the camera and then just screams at
Dumb
it.
jokes, like
I feel like that was his shtick about everything, though. So he's just applying Israel to what his normal shtick
he's just
was.
getting angry on camera. It's you look stupid and whiny, and you aren't making any points, and you aren't convincing anybody. But yeah, we'll take the vote nonetheless.
Well, let's read what we got here. We got Infinite Soul Daddy saying, we need a Make America Healthy Again culture war episode. Dr. Lane Norton would be ideal as he has both worked in nutrition research and also run a monthly research review, as well as being a champion powerlifter.
So excited to see if RFK Jr. gets appointed something health related in the Trump
should.
administration.
I think you will. Yeah.
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 I love how people panic over that, as if we're just doing such a great job with maintaining and promoting health in America, and like if we shake that system up, we're screwed.
People are so ridiculous. Like, people act as if like we got rid of like the FDA, like that means that nothing would be safe anymore. It's as if liability doesn't still lie with the companies that are producing stuff. Like they would just go ahead and willy-nilly throw razor blades into everything they make and all the food we eat, because no one would sue or anything like that. And another thing is they do that with the Department of Education too. I'm personally very pro getting rid of the Department of Education entirely, and people act like if we don't have it, like people won't be educated. It's like the Department of Education was created in 1979, and there have been zero significant discoveries in physics since 1979. Everything that's been discovered and happened in physics since the creation of the Department of Education has been built on things that we already knew, or theories that were already in place. There was zero new discoveries, zero movement in physics since the Department of Education was created. Everything happened before then. So the idea that without the DOE, the Department of Education, that scientific research will stop and people will become foolish, that is a result of the Department of Education.
Yeah. People also think they conflate the Department of Education with the public school system. And so they think if you get rid of the Department of Education, you get rid of the public school system. That's not the case at all, of course. Public school system is almost entirely a state level thing. Now, I'm in favor of getting rid of the public school system too, personally.
Exactly, yeah.
But Trump's not talking about doing that.
That's
so.
Project 22. That's the thing we were keeping quiet.
Right. We're not supposed to talk about that.
I advocate for that all the time.
You should.
Yeah, I think the whole public education system is ridiculous, and I do not support it at all.
Yeah, and we could do a whole thing. I mean, it has utterly failed to actually educate children. There's all, there's also, speaking of the Department of Education, one of the only useful things the Department of Education has done in the last, 30 years exactly 20 years ago, they did a report about the sex abuse epidemic in the public school system by educators, by staff members.
Wow.
And they found that, and I don't want to get it wrong, but I think it was something like
1 in 10 students will experience some form of sexual mistreatment. So whether that's a really inappropriate sexual joke or a teacher touching them.
Right, 1 in 10. So that's what I thought it was, 1 in 10. So you're talking about millions and millions of kids. Mm-hmm. And that was 20 years ago. And as far as I know, the Department of Education never followed up on that. They have not they have not returned to see what's happened in the last 20 years, because nothing was done to solve that problem. And one thing we know is when you have a widespread sex abuse epidemic in an institution, if you don't aggressively try to solve it, it's not going to just go away. It only gets worse. And they've done nothing about that because they're utterly useless.
Well, they're open about it. They say they want teachers to have secret conversations about sex with students.
Yeah.
I mean, and as far as RFK go, I'm sorry, I was going to say the Assistant Secretary for Health right now is currently a man who thinks he could be a woman.
Yeah,
so
right.
Can't get much worse.
And he's overweight too.
Okay. Katoth Swift says, prepare the crystals. So for those that don't know, it's a meme where someone said some liberal, should be trapped in crystals for 10,000 years. And now Seamus has made, I think, 2 cartoons where Trump traps liberals in crystals.
As it is right and just.
Traps them in crystals for 10,000 years. I guess it's funny.
Yeah.
Some people are saying it's from Elder Scrolls. It's not really. but it's funny nonetheless. Let's grab some more super chats. All right. Paraceus, is that how you say it? Paracelsius? Matt Walsh, is anime still satanic now that the Vatican has an anime mascot? I also remember the Daily Wire simping for Ron DeSantis.
Is anime still satanic? You know, some of it is. I think science has shown that it was. I think it was 27% is satanic.
Yeah,
Around
yeah,
that was the. That's also in Project 2025.
Well, they
That's what-
replicated, yeah, and they actually did replicate that several times. So it's,
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
what-
27.
Literally
between like
the,
27 and 33.
The first chapter of Project 2025 is the case for banning anime in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most people don't know that.
We're gonna put tariffs on anime.
All the
coming in,
weeps,
so-
you gotta go.
Exactly.
Send them back.
I'm a big supporter of animation tariffs as an animator.
Yeah.
I mean, anime has to be made way more expensive. They're competing with us.
Well, they don't a lot of these studios hire Korean animators? I'm not
In
kidding.
America? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of studios.
It's
in the
true.
United
They're
States hire
outsourcing
Korean.
animation
Yeah,
jobs
yeah,
to Korea.
Let me ask this: because when I made that comment about anime, everyone's like, "Well, you don't even know what anime is. How do you define anime?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I don't really. What is it? So,
I want to say like a Japanese cartoon.
is it just any?
So-
is it any cartoon made in Japan? Is that anime?
Yes.
Or is it-
I believe so. I think anime just means animation.
Well, it's anime
yeah.
references Japanese animation.
Yeah.
okay, so if it's anime, so if it's in Japan, it's it
A cartoon in Japan, we refer to it as anime.
Or made in
they call
Japan.
it. They call
has
it
to be
anime.
made in Japan.
I believe so. Yeah.
And then Japanese influence, I guess, for the modern day.
no,
People,
like-
people debate or like people, and I don't even. I don't watch
anime
but-
is Japanese cartoons because
Okay, so if you're a Japanese person, would you consider Looney Tunes to be anime? Because
No, cartoon.
maybe.
But however, there is
a
a really funny meme where it was a guy basically saying that a Japanese guy flies to America with Bugs Bunny t-shirts and like a Tasmanian devil hat and is walking around talking to people how excited he is to go see the Looney Tunes, and we'd all look at that person like a lunatic. And they were like, now you understand what it's like when these Americans fly to Japan and are like super excited about Goku and all that stuff. Although the meme isn't necessarily correct, the thing about in Japan with anime is that it's they have more anime and manga than they do live action shows. Although it has been changing in the past I don't know couple decades, but it's just like we have Superman, they have Goku, they have their characters, we have our characters, we have Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is everywhere. Their shows can be a bit more serious than ours, and they prefer like serialized shows more than we do.
and Satanism
So-
more often, at least 27% of the time.
Perhaps,
Right.
indeed, yes. Right now, I think the biggest problem with it is that, for whatever reason, I don't know enough about it, but the studios are producing like 50 versions of one show, and then there's like 50. There's 50 different shows, each with 50 versions of the same show, and it's the weirdest thing ever. So if you go to Amazon, for instance, and you look at, say, like the Crunchyroll, there's like 15 shows that are all titled something like "I transported to another dimension where I'm a warrior." And they're titled literally like that. One is like that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and it's about a guy who dies, goes to a reality
This is
where
what
there's,
we mean. Yeah.
there's goblins and he's a slime and he's got magic powers. Then there's one where it's like I transported to a mythical world where I level up real fast. I'm not kidding. These are what the titles of the shows are, and they're all basically the same thing. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing ever. Could you imagine if like tomorrow you woke up and there were 15 shows called the Samsons, the Simps, the Simp Singers. It's all just different versions of the Simpsons, and they're all
It's
just
just Family Guy and American Dad, and like a
Yeah, but,
Cleveland
like,
show.
There's 3 shows that are comparable, but imagine
No,
if
no,
they
I know. I'm
literally
giving you a hard
all
time.
at once right now came out with American Dad, American Uncle, American Grandfather, American Son, and you're just like, they're all the same show.
That's true.
That's what they're doing. It's the weirdest thing.
that is weird. Can I just go back to the initial question about me calling anime satanic?
Yeah.
It's always funny the things that people latch onto, because that initial comment of mine, it was that I was doing an all access. It was like 2 years ago. It was an all access. It's just like a live stream for our subscribers. And it was a total just off the cuff, offhand remark that meant nothing to me at all. Because someone brought up anime, and I said, it's satanic, whatever. And then I just moved on. And for 2 years, like that one little sentence that it's just constantly brought up all the time. as if this has become a defining feature of me. Apparently, is my opposition to anime. It's like the most important. It's one of it's my it's a platform of my.
People are committed to
You're
anime.
you're pro-life, anti-anime.
Right.
Yeah. One of my favorite memes is Jordan Peterson saying you have to watch Attack on Titan because it actually does sound like something Jordan Peter would. For those that know what Attack on Titan is about, it's completely plausible that Jordan Peterson would tell people to watch the show.
It was like an early AI meme, right?
Yeah.
Someone got an AI where
Right.
it really sounded like him.
But the thing is that Attack on Titan is about punishing a nation for the sins of the past and people holding grudges. And I'm like, that's very much kind of what Jordan Peterson would talk about. So hearing that, it's believable. I actually would love to sit down and have Jordan Peterson watch a couple episodes and then give us his like explanation and understanding of the philosophy around the ideas. It's basically like a group of people terrorize another group of people. Thousands of years later, they're imprisoned. And it's just because they're the bad people who did bad things. It's interesting. More complicated show than that. They're giant monsters that eat people, but that's besides the point.
Have you had Jordan on the show?
Just for a few minutes on election night.
All right.
But, the thing is, I've talked to him about it, and he thinks the Culture War is a better show where we actually just will discuss larger ideas and philosophy, whereas this show is we pull up news articles and comment on them. So, we'll see. We'll see. I also think it would be... what we need is here's my pitch to you, Matt. Having you and Seamus watch movies and comment on them would be the funniest thing ever. So Seamus and I were hanging out and we were watching, what was that movie called?
Oh my
For
gosh.
Sale.
For Sale.
And
Really good film.
Seamus is just talking during the whole movie, but don't worry, it was funny. Because the movie was just one of the worst movies ever.
bad.
And I was like, what's funny is like, this movie's intolerable except for Seamus being here and providing the jokes. Now it's actually really funny. I was like, Seamus, you should actually do like a Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Mystery Science Seamus 3000.
But I say this to you, you there's two movies you need to watch and comment on. I don't know if you'll actually do it, but it's The Craft, the new one. Have you seen it?
Oh, man.
No.
And The Spiral. Okay, so The Craft is the remake. In the 90s, 4 teenage girls are witches or whatever.
Yeah, witchcraft thing. I've heard of it.
Okay, well, the remake, they're super woke. One of the witches is a guy, but trans. And they use magic to turn the bully gay. And the whole thing is just this. David Duchovny turns out to be an evil wizard or something, and he's the patriarchy, and he's like, I'm going to take women's powers away from them or something. And so it's actually just mind-numbingly woke and bad. And the movie The Spiral is about an interracial gay couple that moves... he's already laughing. That moves into this house, and the neighbor is this waspy family. And then it turns out the waspy family are immortal because they...
Spoilers.
I'm telling you what it's about. They trick interracial gay couples into moving into the house so they need human sacrifices to be immortal. And they can easily get people to turn against the minorities. So that's what they do.
Oh my gosh.
Like hearing you guys like comment on these would be absolutely hilarious.
Hearing you tell Matt Walsh that he needs to watch this movie is hilarious.
I don't.
It is.
But so he needs to take their life force or something. But why do they need to be interracial and also gay?
So in the movie,
I don't understand.
At the end, he says something like, "You can't just sacrifice anybody because people will find out and they'll be mad that you did it. But when you bring a marginalized group in," and he literally says this, and it's been I watched it. I can't remember. It's been a long time. It's a Shudder film. He's like, maybe they're Muslim or gay or trans or black, but no one seems to care when they go.
Those would all be
I see.
hashtags. Those would all be hashtags the next day. Everyone in the country would be talking about it for weeks.
I could be getting the movie wrong because I watched it. I couldn't actually watch it, so it was like it was on.
So as long as it's one of the only groups that anyone actually cares about when they die.
I know. Dude, I would actually be more interested in remaking that movie Netflix style where we swap the races.
Yeah, you got to lure middle-aged white men. Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
They never get the hashtag.
Exactly.
There's never remember their name. Like it never happens.
Say his name.
All right, let's grab this one. Is This Dom says, Matt Walsh, you were recommended an anime that you were bound to hate. It was a poor choice. Watch Vinland Saga.
I watched what did I watch? One Punch Man.
Oh, that was great. Did you like it?
No.
One Punch Man is mocking anime.
Well, okay, but can I make the argument against it?
Sure.
It's just weird, man.
But
That's my whole argument. It's just weird. I don't know. I tried to watch it. It was just weird.
here the issue I suppose is you're watching a show that's intentionally mocking anime, and it's like if you watch anime and then you watch. If you've never seen anime, you're like, is this what anime? Well, no. One Punch Man is meant to insult and mock anime. It's hilarious. So it's all a gag.
Okay, so what's the anime that I should watch?
Dragon Ball Z.
No.
Come on, are you kidding?
It's
the only anime I like.
Pokemon?
Pokemon's fantastic.
Pokemon's not an anime.
No, get out.
Digimon.
No,
Digimon.
don't listen to these people. Death Note. Death
listen
Note
to
is
these
about
people.
Death Note is about a high school student. One day he finds a notebook that was dropped by a death god. That if he writes their name in it, they'll die. And then he begins to develop this Machiavellian scheme to massacre people all across the world.
Oh, yeah, didn't you? Did you tell me that?
I did tell you to
Okay.
watch this. And this is considered one of the best anime manga shows. It's much more serious. It's really well done. And I'm going to spoil a little bit so I can get an idea. He's intentionally killing people in a way that people will recognize a pattern, so that they fear that someone has supernatural powers to murder. That's what he wants them to believe. So when the investigators are looking at people and trying to figure it out, with one hand he's doing his homework, with his other hand he's reaching into potato chips and writing names down. I recommend it. People love Death Note. It's good.
You know what it is? A lot of it is just I just can't get into the cartoons. Like
I can't believe it.
A cartoon can be funny. Okay, so that's what I can get into. And so I could laugh, but if I want to get invested in the story, I don't know. There's this wall that's put up. I feel the same way about musicals.
You know, if you watch,
You need this suspension of disbelief. I think that's what you're missing here.
But he's saying that musicals just don't allow that for.
Yeah, once they start singing, I'm like, well, now I'm aware that I'm watching a thing, and I don't, and it's a little bit that too with cartoons. So a funny cartoon like South Park's hilarious. I can watch that and laugh. But if I'm supposed to get invested in the story, I have trouble.
yeah, and they're big because they're serialized. You know, it's you can't just watch an episode. One of the mistakes that they made in the 90s when they tried bringing anime to the United States is that they didn't understand this. The Americans were like, when we do cartoons, it doesn't matter. You watch one episode, you watch them all. At the end of the episode, everything goes back to normal. So they transported some anime over, and they just spattered the episodes out randomly, and it made literally no sense. So you're like trying to watch, and you're like, one episode, the guy's flying, the next one, the guy's made of cheese.
So I have a
and you're
question.
like, what?
Is there any example of... So is this an American thing? Like in America, we think of cartoons as it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
Like they're only funny. So are there examples of American cartoon shows that are not
Avatar.
It's kind of anime inspired though.
Right. Yeah. But
it's American, yeah.
Yeah, so Avatar and they have that series. There's 3 seasons and it's critically acclaimed. It's an amazing show actually. And then they have The Legend of Korra, which is pretty good. And it's fun.
And those are American, they're not anime?
They're American shows made by Nickelodeon in the style of anime, but still animated.
I think they're made by Asian Americans too. I don't know if that
Yeah,
changes
that
the
doesn't count.
calculus. I don't know if that changes.
I'm talking about, like, you know what I mean? An American cartoon, American style that's not funny. It's just supposed to be a drama or action or something.
There's plenty that aren't funny, but yeah, ones that are like,
trying to be funny.
Yeah, no,
like
no.
Simpsons after season 10.
It's so true, dude. It's crazy how fast that show fell off.
Most American cartoons are just considered just to be funny.
Right, that's what
I'm trying
I'm
to
saying.
think, and someone will try to do a dramatic element to them, like Rick and Morty would do that thing
That's
where
a
they would
comedy,
try
dude.
to.
That's pure
That's
comedy.
that's why I said element. It's a
Samurai
comedy.
Jack.
That's
Samurai
literally my
Jack.
point. Is it's a comedy, but they'll try to have a serious element.
Samurai Jack.
Jack's also kind of anime inspired.
I feel like that's probably also made by an Asian American. Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack looks nothing like anime. It's a totally American style.
It is a more
It's not
American
made by an Asian,
style,
actually.
but no, it's
Samurai-
all about fighting and it's about a samurai and like
Yes,
there's
but that's-
clearly Asian inspiration there.
Sure, but it's not. It's an American cartoon that is not funny.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's probably a couple kids shows that maybe fall into that category that are more educational. Obviously,
Invincible.
Like rival cartoons
Okay, well we got
too.
a couple. Invincible is one. Invincible is a new show on Amazon, which is a superhero show. Actually, fair point. Justice League, Spider-Man, X-Men, all the superhero
yeah, the
stuff.
superhero stuff.
Right, yeah,
They're all serialized and they're not comedy. Yeah.
I guess I should have said
Justice League isn't serialized. It's partly, but the original X-Men series in '97 was. They brought it back. So Disney actually, yeah. What If? Disney's Marvel What If is I think it's 3 seasons, and it's 3D cartoon style animation. Anyway, we're talking about cartoons now. We're going over time. I can barely talk anymore. Guys, smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, become a member at timcast.com, join the Discord. Everybody wants to be your friend. And they're sitting here being like, why won't you come in and be friends with us? Well, you got to go to timcast.com and sign up, support the show. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Matt, do you want to shout anything out?
Am I Racist is streaming right now on Daily Wire. Go to dailywire.com and get signed up and watch the movie.
Right on.
It's hilarious.
I've got a very serious cartoon that's not intended to be funny. It's called Freedom Tunes. I want you guys to go over there. I want you to watch every single. I want you to binge it from the start. It's just a really engaging drama. No, go over to Freedom Tunes. We just broke 1 million subscribers a few weeks ago. We're at like 1,020,000. So thank you guys for that. And if you want to help us to continue to churn out content, which is funny and entertaining and gets shared around and helps to mitigate the unbridled punishment that is paying attention to politics with some laughs and also advance the message with something other than like podcasts and punditry, please go to freedomtunes.com, become a member. We've got some really cool stuff planned for the future.
Absolutely. I'm Elaad Eliyahu. I'm a journalist here at Timcast. This whole week's kind of been unreal. The Daily Wire crew and whole team here has been awesome. Tim, thank you so much for bringing us out here. It's pretty much it. I wanted to ask Matt Walsh, did you ever get an answer to Are You Racist? Did anybody ever?
He is, yeah.
I mean, I got an answer. That was an easy one for me to answer. The answer was yes, it turns out.
Okay. Well, gee whiz. Phil, what's up?
And also, one last thing. It looks like Charlie Kirk shouted you out, Matt, saying that we need to recognize Matt Walsh for his role in the landslide. For his, Matt courageously and effectively set out on a one-man mission to expose the trans mafia at great personal risk to himself with the film What Is a Woman? And then he shows this data showing that it greatly informed people on what was going on. And yeah, so congratulations, good sir.
Well, that's a high compliment coming from Charlie Kirk, who, of course, I mean, if you were to point to individual people outside of the Trump campaign, or Trump himself, responsible for Trump's victory, I mean, Charlie Kirk is like at the top of that list. I mean, it's...
Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out. It's been a whole lot of fun. We are going to... Phil's here. My bad.
I am Phil that remains on. I am Phil that remains on Twix. I am Phil that remains official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. We have a brand new single out. It's called Forever Cold. You can check it out on our YouTube page. You can check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Deezer, and don't forget, the left lane is absolutely for crime.
I am way too tired. We will see you all next week. We're back on Monday. YouTube.com/TimcastNews. Subscribe to my morning show channel. I'll see you all there.